Well, here we go once again. Strap yourselves in and ready yourselves for another few weeks of thrilling entertainment as the Coach Dave Super Sprint gets underway. 10 races over 5 rounds at 5 circuits here on ACC. We will visit Zandvoort, Barcelona, Bathurst and Imola. Before we set sail for our globe-trotting adventures, we must begin here. It is, of course, Brands Hatch, a circuit which, and I'm going to use air quotes here, opened in the 1940s, was originally a natural grass circuit, track typically reserved for motorcycle racing before it got tarmacked in the opening to the 1950s. It's fairly well established, the direction to attack corners like Paddock Hill these days, but back then it was an uphill affair as the circuit originally went counterclockwise, something I'd be quite interested in seeing in the modern day if I'm perfectly honest. Normally though, we will stick to a standard evening's entertainment as we take on the 3.9 kilometre circuit of the twists and turns in its standard clockwise direction. Of course we will, for 2 more fantastic races with an exceptionally strong grid. The typical adventure you would expect to see here in the SimGrid as round number 1 of the Coach Dave Super Sprint gets underway. In the commentary brief this evening, I'm Lewis McGlade, glad to be back to the SimGrid, and of course have to be joined by Mr. David Christie. DC, this should be a lot of fun.
It really should. Lewis, it's fantastic to have you back here on the SimGrid and with Coach Dave. We were about to send a search party out for you, but I mean, look, what better place to start the season than at Brands Hatch, the first big event here at the SimGrid for 2022. It's going to be a fantastic season. So many big names, so many big teams, and so many talking points ahead of this season.
I mean, we said it there, 3.9 kilometres, but it's 3.9 kilometres of absolute difficulty. This is not an easy circuit. I think people understand that. No one underestimates this circuit anymore. Such tricky corners in the form of, Paddock Hill, of Hawthorns, of course, Sheen Curves, Dingledale, however you want to call it these days. Fantastic racetrack, though.
It absolutely is, and I think one thing that people maybe don't get the idea of just how fast this track is and how punishing it is for the likes of your tyres and for the cars as well. You've got iconic corners, as you said, like Dingledale, and then coming through to Sheen's as well. You've got the Hawthorn bend as well. Those are going to be really, really difficult places for drivers to get the cars around anyway. But when you've got cars going 2, 3, 4 wide, as we always see week in, week out here, it's completely different kettle of fish.
Yeah, it is. And to explain to you how this evening is going to work, of course, here we're focused on top split. We do know there's a couple of other splits of racing as well underway. We're going to be playing through 2 races. Now, the 2 races do have a slight difference. They're both an hour long. However, in race number 1, there is a mandatory fuel and tyre change, of course, with a driver swap as well that we know within the sprint series. And in race 2, there is no tyre and fuel changes allowed. And also, we have a nice qualifying session to set the grid for race 1. Race 2 will be set the entire grid, with the exception of the top 10, which will be reversed. And you know me, I love a good reverse grid. I love a good sprint race as well.
And that is what we are in store for tonight. There's so many different variables, I think, on this championship as well. Plenty to mix things up, because what we'd see championships that were by, say, maybe race 3 or 4, you'd get a good idea of who was going to be in for a good shot at the championship overall. I don't think we're going to have that in this one here with the Coach Dave Super Sprint. There's so many big names that are capable of performing, at any given time. I think there's lots that could be all up in the air right until the last race of the season.
Well, remember how let's go with the word inconsistent, and this has been the case as well with the sprint series in the past. But even to when we were working together on the SimGrid VCO World Cup, and how things were inconsistent. Every 5 races, 5 completely different races all over those. Now, yes, of course, that's endurance. This is sprint, but the fact of the size and the strength of field of a grid like this, it's as open as anything that we've competed in SimGrid as well.
The other thing that we've got to remember, Lewis, since the last time that we were on together is, that big 1.8 update has come out, so that's changed an awful lot as well. Tyre model has been completely updated, meaning that it's so important for this lap here, where qualifying's just begun, and the driver's going out and warming up their tyres. They can't be aggressive anymore. They have to take it gentle, and they have to take their time warming those tyres up. Otherwise, they're going to really struggle in the race. So that's going to be something to watch out for, I think, in race 2, for instance.
Typically, we'd see, like you say, qualifying, a couple of lap stints, right? To be fair, they take the most out of it on the first lap, but you still have enough pace left for a good 2, 3, 4 lap stint even. You'd still have the pace in the tank. These days, less likely. We're burning them out. And it's why in the sprint race, that hour-long race, particularly in obviously in the second one, the first one where they can change tyres, fair enough, although how you go about that is to each team. But in that second race where they're not allowed to switch them, honestly, that is going to be a thrilling end to the evening, because you're going to be jumping into the car on someone else's tyres where they have probably completely burnt them out, which is not ideal. It's those kind of dynamics which make things very, very interesting as we start to see the first couple of laps here at Brands Hatch.
And that is a massive thing that we cannot possibly overemphasise. If you're brand new to the SimGrid, if you're brand new maybe to watching Assetto Corsa Competizione, these are the things that you currently have to watch out for. This is the lay of the land with this sim, and obviously there's a big interest in sim racing in general this week with that other big name sim that's just been released on the console. So I think the attention is fairly massive in terms of sim racing over this week, and it's just great to be part of this burgeoning community, and for all of the nice comments that we get on YouTube about the events, about the productions that we put on here, very, very much appreciated. And I don't know about yourself, and I can pretty much actually speak for you there, Lewis, but it's honestly, you still have to pinch yourself sometimes to think this is where we are commentating on virtual races.
I mean, I've commentated on sim racing for a good while, been on and off, racing myself and then jumping back into the commentary booth. The speed things change in sim racing is absolutely ridiculous, and of course we couldn't do without the hard work of, to be fair, everyone watching, and of course the hard work of those behind the scenes. Of course, we know Michael Hamlet, who's constantly in our ears telling us what is going on, and Mike Gow, who's bringing us the broadcast pictures for today. And through the SimGrid VCO World Cup, this guy right here, James Parker, was actually going to speak about him, was giving us plenty of information and insight throughout the running of that. Insight which I'm sure we'd be even more curious to know about now, considering the switch to 1.8.
And on that note as well, it's amazing how many, almost mini celebrities that these championships create, isn't it, Lewis? The fact that, you go into any of the YouTube chat rooms, and already we've got asked if Jardier, aka Jaroslav Honzig, is in tonight. I've got to be honest here, Lewis. Have you ever gotten over the trauma of YouTube chat constantly asking, is Max in this split?
No. I still love a good joke about as Max in this split. It's always a bit of good fun. But yeah, no, do love ourselves a bit of Jaroslav Honzig, who was making some jokes about the briefing as well a little bit earlier on in the evening. As we ride on board with James Parker running around this circuit, the opening lap of the session, George Boothby has set the fastest time of the session, a 1:22.067. Novikov directly behind with a 22.192. So a good, eighth of a second margin that George Boothby's got at the top of the session in that Ferrari.
And it's amazing how predictable these qualifying sessions are in terms of the way that they unfold. So obviously 15-minute qualifying session, and what you normally find is that within the first 5 to 8 minutes you'll get drivers going out and doing relatively fast laps, and I say relatively fast laps, although Darren McCormack doing 1:22.0. Every single one of these drivers already about a second and a half faster than I can put a car around this track here. That really doesn't actually say much about them, more about me, unfortunately. But anyway, the point being, for the first couple of minutes the drivers do what they call banker laps. They put in laps that are reasonably quick, but if all else fails, then they've at least got a semi-decent lap. But then what you'll find is they'll come into the pits, they'll do a couple of tweaks, they'll maybe get an ultra-aggressive setting on the car that's a bit unstable but super, super fast, and then they'll just absolutely throw the car around the track. And that is when you see the scary, scary fast-paced times come in.
It's where, from my personal experience, having done some plenty of qualifying sessions in my time in sim racing, if you don't have that banker lap set in the early stage of the race, like a decent banker lap, I'm not talking 3.5 seconds off. That's a very big banker lap. You set a time that's a good couple of tenths off of what you can actually do. That's great. It really settles you down for the rest of the session. It allows you to really attack, because at that point, if you crash, do you know what? It was fine. I'd already pushed myself. Speaking of crashing, already one off there. That one being the 8-2. Is that the 521? It would be the wheel spin esports 521 car that's just off, coming down towards the penultimate corner. You don't want to have those big moments though when you haven't set your bank lap, because you know that every lap you do towards the end of the session is critical to not starting in the much feared danger zone in the middle of the pack.
The other point I was going to ask you there, Lewis, is the fact that I've been in races with you and seen some of the races that you do, so you've got experience of being in big packs. Qualifying session with 34 cars out on track at the same time. How difficult is that? A, keeping focus, and B, just trying to get consistency and a little bit of space?
Unbelievably difficult. It's so tricky, because you've got people on outlaps, obviously less so on in-laps, as people can escape in sim racing, thankfully. Causes a bit less drama in this, but you've still got to focus on yourself. When we go to other circuits on the calendar, the likes of Bathurst, of course, where the lap times are in the lower end of like the 2 minute sort of 2s, 3s, 5s, that kind of area, great stuff. You've got so much space to play with. Around here, where you're talking an 80-second lap, you barely have enough time to breathe, let alone shift all through your gears, make sure you're hitting your braking zone, juggle around everyone else, making sure, wait, they're on an out lap, I've got to get past them before I get into the braking zone coming into this corner. Are they going to let me go? Do I just commit to the corner and hope they do let me go? What if we get involved in an instant? Whose fault is it? All of those things constantly running through your head. It is daunting. And then when you finally do get on a good lap, if you've not put in that banker, when you're finally putting it in later on in the session, your heart starts racing, you start sweating, you start thinking about it so much, and by the time you start hooking up those final couple of corners, you're coming down with a 3/10 advantage over your previous lap into the final corner. Oh, how easy it is at that point to overthink it and either brake too early or brake way too late. That finding that middle spot is so unbelievably difficult.
And staying in that rhythm as well is so crucially important, because what always amazed me when I started doing the commentary on Assetto Corsa Competizione and this sort of high tier of competition is that you see these times and you think, oh, that's great, they're really good at doing a fast lap, but we know from experience they're not that far off it on a race pace as well, and it's frightening, the ability that they could just churn out these laps almost at will. I mean, Novikov going on pole position there with 6.5 minutes left to go, 121.8, that is absolutely absurd. David Pertil was on for a good one there, but I mean, we just had it pointed out in YouTube chat as well by Thomas Vonderchek. That's almost 30 cars, Lewis, that we've got within 1 second of the leader, and that makes me so giddy when I see that, because you just know that it leads to the most amazing racing conditions.
Well, typically, I know a lot of people would be like, yeah, but that's 1 second around an 80-second lap. It's fair enough. They're 1 second apart, almost regardless of the racetrack. When we go to Bathurst, the gaps will be around the same as well. Like they are just separated by that little. It is incredible. And this is a circuit which, despite it being only 80 seconds, is so difficult that you would typically see larger margins around the circuit. There's so many tricky corners as we see Dyer McCormack start yet another stint within this session. Did a fantastic job to go and grab provisional pole a little bit earlier on. Didn't last very long. Novikov slapped them off, and also got a shout out to Issa, who sat up there in second position. And we were seeing, of course, the Yazheat Pirelli car. Got to give them a bit of a shout. Mikhail Stutsenko behind the wheel at the moment, but we do get to see, and I'm not sure if this is one of the first races that we see Malinovsky in a Yazheat car. Did see their tweet about Malinovsky jumping over into that car as well, though, of course, has done plenty of racing within the sprint series, including last season. I'm pretty sure he won the championship, if memory serves.
I think you might be absolutely spot on. Unfortunately, I don't have that sort of memory. I can struggle to remember what I had for my supper. Never mind those championship winners. But it wouldn't surprise me. And the thing is that you look at the quality of field that we've got in this top split, and obviously, we've got several splits going on for drivers of all abilities to take part in exactly the same championship. But I look at the drivers on this list here, and it's like a who's who of Assetto Corsa sim racing drivers.
Also, for me, first time jumping into to ACC in a little while. No more M6 for anyone who's been away, of course, for a fair while, much like myself. We've got ourselves the BMW M4, which Robbie Stapleford drives after he jumped over to G2 Sports from Rocket Sim Sports. I'm getting it in my ear, but I am going to say it as well, traitor, because, of course, Rocket Sim Sports team. Oh, yeah, it's fine. Obviously, an incredibly talented driver is Robbie Stapleford, such a young driver as well, and for G2 Esports to have picked up a driver of this talent, that is a pretty solid signing, if I do say so myself.
I've got to be honest, I 100% agree with you. I've watched Robbie probably over the last 8 months to a year, and it is frightening how much talent this young lad has got. I remember one of the first races that I was commentating on him, he was... I believe that he'd already won the championship, and he started at the back of the grid, and it was like 25 cars, and he came all the way through the back of the grid and still won the race with full ballast. It was just ridiculous. He's so fast, he's so controlled and precise, and I mean, I can't even remember how old he is. He's like 15 or something like that, isn't he?
I'm pretty sure he's 10, but no, he's 15. He's 15 years old. I think he was signed to Rocket when he was 14, and like I say, incredible talent. This is one thing that I've said though with ACC, more so than any of the other simulators that we've got, is the young talent that we've got on ACC. Of course, speaking of young talent and sign, not actually here, but Unicorns of Love obviously picking up from GTW RAG Academy and that lot, the likes of Tobias Pfeffer and Dennis Schoeniger, like that lot. I mean, oh God, the future's bright for a lot of these teams, but it's just it's sort of like, the future's bright for them for about 15 minutes until someone else rips up with another like 14-year-old who suddenly just sets lap times which you'd only dream of a few months ago.
100%. And just to answer one of the questions coming through on YouTube to Ben Glasgow. Firstly, thanks very much for joining us tonight, Ben. I know it's the first time watching. So this is the top tier. There are several tiers that run in this competition, and you put yourself in based on where you think you're going to go. So the pro split is proper, alien level ability. I certainly wouldn't be wanting to just dive in here unless I knew I was in with a shout. And I mean, Lewis, again, going back to that point, down to Patrick Naj, who is our last guy just under a second tier. It really shows, you see some of the drivers, the guys and the girls in maybe split 2 or split 3. And when you see them coming through to this top split, having been down there, it's almost like a promotion for them, is it? It's almost like a coming of age.
Yeah, you've got to... I don't know what it is when you step onto a grid like this, but you kind of up your game as well. It's kind of hard... Genuinely, people will start setting PBs on grids like this, just because you kind of like, right, this is the level this is at. You kind of take a deep breath and you bring your game up. It's such an opportunity to be on a grid anywhere in sim racing that is of this strength. Can be incredibly frustrating, because when you set a time that is 7/10 off, and I have had this one myself, I set a time that was 7/10 off around Istanbul in an open wheeler once, and I was 27th, and that is a painful experience. So considering where we've got all these drivers that are 7/10 off, Kontianis, Garadis, Chasnicki, and Shermatinsky, all that lot, they're all around about 7/10 off. 7/10 really isn't that much. You nail Paddock Hill, and to be perfectly honest, you can gain yourself a couple of tenths just by nailing that one corner, and then you start to figure out a couple of, with the high commitment around Hawthorns and all that, you can find so much time on this circuit. When you piece it together, sometimes you'll cross the line and think, well, hang on, where did that time come from?
Exactly, and the thing with that is that as much as all these drivers put in so much work and so much practice, a lot of the time it just comes like this inspiration, this blind force that gives all this ability and performance to them, and they're just as surprised when you chat to them, and we usually do. We talk to them and like, where did that lap come from? They're like, I have absolutely no idea.
Yeah. Absolutely. So final moments of this qualifying session, then we'll see Valentin Barriere for the Jardier community team depart the final corner and come towards the line, see if there's any sort of improvement. Any sort of improvement at this level will move you up, and there it is, up to 16th position just from going up a couple of tenths. Eamon Murphy, this is one super team that we really are looking forward to over this evening. Guess who his teammate is? Of course it is one Mr. James Baldwin, world's fastest gamer, a little while ago, but still competing in this sort of level alongside Eamon Murphy. Car stationary there as the final session comes in. Obviously a lot of people are escaping. Let's see what the Irishman can do out of the final corner. Straight into pit lane. To be fair, good to practice pit lane entry. It's something that people overlook very easily.
I don't tend to overlook it. I just tend to look into the barrier when I'm upside down after spinning the car out into it. But it's a super fast entry, and that little chicane just on the entry as well catches a lot of people out. Right. And what you don't want to do, Lewis, is, given that this is a team game, you don't want to be handed over a stop-go penalty as Ivan Cherbotinsky. I think he just got away with that, but I think there goes any chance of improving that lap there.
Yeah, it was time lost regardless. So as we crossed the line to finish the session, it is the earlier times of the session, the reason why we won't really focus too much on the top. That lap time, the 1:21.807 that Novikov sets, to be fair, in the first sort of 5-6 minutes of the session, that was good enough to secure pole position, again, ahead of Issa, as we were kind of showing a bit earlier, Dyer McCormack and George Boothby. The top four, no improvements for the likes of Eamon Murphy, so they'll still have to roll off 7th position behind Abel, behind Novakovsky as well. A great session, but a really strong lap there from Novikov to grab that pole.
Absolutely was, and I think that sets the benchmark for where SimGrid Up Pro by Vides aim to be. I mean, we both know that the 41, the 42 teams have got incredible drivers, incredible team behind them that supports them. I expected to see them up in the top 5, but I think they'll be delighted still to take pole position, and that 41 car, the Merc, down in 6th place. They won't be too unhappy with that for the first race of the season here.
I think that's one thing that we kind of really do need to speak about on this is, we speak of the balance of power all the time. You can see there Bentleys, McLarens, Mercs, Ferraris all up towards the front. Novikov on pole position then. Of course, it was Issa who set the time for the 777. Raymond Mooney behind the wheel. Dyer McCormack did enough work to grab 3rd position for the Williams eSports car, and then the Yaz Heat car of George Boothby on the right-hand side. Novakovsky for Carbon on the left, and then Abelards for the SimWare.pro car. Keep your eye on this one, the 28 of Veloce, alongside the 977 of Van Druten. Nick Hoban in the R8G car, if memory serves, alongside the 77 of Arndt, that one being the Prime E-Racing car. Fantastic grid here. Did see, of course, Carter McColeman, that was in chat a little bit earlier as well, roll through the rest of the grid. Of course, that is the team manager for the Volante Racing Aztec Sim Sports car, which is qualified just outside of the top 10. Not sure what they're aiming for. The team was comfortably within the top 10 for most of that session. But what other cars are we looking at coming down this grid? There are a few to keep your eye on.
15th place, I think the number 62 jumps out of the BMW G2 Esports, Robbie Stapleford and Charlie Crossland. Now, Charlie, I've got a little bit of experience working and commentating on Charlie. Watch out, if anything bad happens when Charlie's in the car, Charlie can suffer from a little bit of temper from my experience, so usually fireworks there. Darren King down in the 383 and 21st would be another one. Valentin Barriere in the 44. There's so many to keep an eye out. Alou Gobi as well in that 49.
Chris Evert and of course Sasha Glatter in the 91 car that rolls off of 16th. There are so many on this grid to pick apart. Now we're going to stick an hour onto the clock. There is a pit window in the middle 10 minutes of this race where we're going to switch drivers and such, so from minute 25 to 35. In that time they are required to come in to put fuel into the car, as well as taking tyres as well. In race 2 we're going to do things slightly differently, but we'll get to that as the evenings unfold. Wow, I mean, I don't know if I should be mean and Actually, no, to be fair, it's my first time back into SimGrid this year. I am going to be mean. Who's winning this one? Go for it. Boom.
Oh, right under the bus. That's exactly what you've done there. I like the pace that Novikov has got. I think it all depends on what happens into turn 1 here. Darren McCormack in that number 80 in the Williams Esports with Tinko van der Velde. They've got a strong chance. I fancy them more than I do second place in that 777 of Raymond Mooney. I'm going to say I think it might be Williams Esports that take this one.
This is it. It's not an easy one. You know, rolling through some of the heavy hitters out towards the front. I mean, you were saying there's some of them there. Seventh place though. Again, you've got Eamon Murphy and James Baldwin. We have the 75 up there. The Yazheat, Richard Milcar, George Boothby behind the wheel at the moment. Yaroslav Honzik. If I'm going to pick anyone, I was going to kind of go the way of Williams Esports, but now you've taken that on. I am going for Eamon Murphy and James Baldwin. I think there is the pace there. Of course, James Baldwin, winner of the SOE Sports, the European Sprint Series that was on last year, battle with David Tanitsa throughout the entirety of that season. I would be aiming towards that. They've got to overcome a bad qualifying though, which is not easy to do around the circuit. It's so hard to pass.
It absolutely is. It's a weird circuit in terms of that because it looks very straightforward. When you look at it on the track map on the right hand side there, it looks like it's just a normal track, but it's so difficult to go on this on your own. Momentum is so key, and if you make a move on the other, and I see this time and time again, Lewis, if you make a move on someone, you better be damn sure that you get that move stuck, because otherwise you're going to find yourself getting passed by 2 or 3 cars.
Well, Novikov at the front of the field has control. We come round. Thankfully, of course, anyone who doesn't really know too much about ACC racing, we're going to be doing a rolling start, not a standing start, which does make things a bit easier around here. You know, you're not going to be seeing some crazy stuff into turn 1, although the likelihood of 3 wide, that run to Paddock Hill with everyone's different power, the likelihood of 3 wide is quite high. And around Paddock Hill, as it drops off, as the front end gives way, it does not end well almost ever.
It usually doesn't, but the cars line up 2 by 2 now. This is when the formation lap really gets into earnest, and I would imagine here is where the nerves and the tension start to build, because you know, another high profile championship, many of these drivers doing them day in day out on ACC, Lewis. It's crunch time.
Certainly is. Novikov on the pole position. It does say that Issa will be behind the wheel, not Raymond Mooney for the 777 car, and Issa was the driver that put that car up into second. Darren McCormack on the front of the second row alongside George Boothby, who we know loves racing around British racetracks for this kind of time. Keep your eye on it as we get ourselves underway in the Coach Dave Super Sprint. Fantastic to be here for an evening's entertainment at Brands Hatch. Green flag in the air, and we are underway at the British circuit. It is Novikov with McCormack with a drive-through penalty directly behind. McCormack's already wrestled second position off of Issa on the run up the hill towards Druids. It's 2 wide behind, of course it is. Oh, the missing of the apex, and look at George Boothby swinging it through on the inside to go and grab second position. That was fantastic into Druids. Does he have it held on the way through into Graham Hill? I think the answer to that question is yes.
Yeah, that was a brilliant move there from Boothby. He saw the opportunity and absolutely took charge of that one. And the thing is that was all on Darren McCormack there, and that little bit of contact going up into Druids. That's what ended up costing him. And again, it comes back to that point. If you're going to make a move, it's such a momentum-based track here, Lewis. You have to make sure the contact. Zahir Essa off into the grass, off into the gravel.
And that's Eamon Murphy. That is the commentator's curse if ever I've seen it. That is Eamon Murphy off with contact with Zahir Issa. That is drama already. I mean, we've said before about the stewarding, slightly different take on the run through the 2022 season, but for Zahir Issa, that is not a good way to start the evening. Qualifying, brilliant. Race, terrible so far.
Yeah, it's been an interesting opening lap, and here was me a way to say, I didn't want to jinx it and say we were going to have an absolutely spicy race, but we already have. So yeah, more of this please. This has been absolutely awesome. But Novikov already a lap to the good, and 1.1 seconds is the gap ahead.
Yeah, great start, and George Boothby up into second position. The likes of Dyer McCormack up in third, Novakovsky, Hoban, then Abelards and Van Druyten were riding on board with Novakovsky. Kind of a bit of an under-the-radar start there from Novakovsky to grab fourth position and now set his sights on the Williams eSports driver. That gap, though, that says around 1 second. George Boothby's the kind of driver that can put that one under pressure and can start closing that one up. We'll keep an eye to see if there is any movers and shakers with inside that top four. Fifth place, though, a lot of pressure on the shoulders of Abelards and that SimWare.Pro car. But keep your eye on Van Druten as Gobby is coming to the outside of the Hawthorns. Well, this didn't go well a lap ago. Didn't go quite so well this time.
Yep, Mikhail Statsenko with a brilliant start up into P10, just taking that 10th position from David Pertil. Shows him wide out onto the grass as Pertil tries to recover, and that means that Chris Sever is going to try and make a move back up and pull that in as well. So again, only 3 minutes into an hour race and we've already seen some huge drama. And I think we'll have a look at potentially get some replays, because there's so much that we need to pick apart. And Darren McCormack now down in the fourth position, so he's lost that from Novikowski.
Yeah, I think that might have been a nice little move for Novakovsky over the Grand Prix loop to get that one stuck on Dyer McCormack. Might have been a mistake, of course, from the young Irishman. But either way, fourth spot, chin up, focus on the rest of the race. Novakovsky might drag you back into the podium battle, as Novikov is the one that is setting the timesheets of life fastest lap on the previous one to pull out another 3/10 on George Boothby. Boothby's pretty strong in that first sector, though, so keep your eye on that. We did see that battle, obviously, Patil with Sever behind. Robbie Stapleford also on the rear end of that little train, dragging along Valentin Barriere, Mikhail Hoban, and to be perfectly honest, the rest of the grid.
Yep, and what a race we have already had in just a short space of time here. Darren McCormack, though, just really needs to try and settle down and catch back up to the back of Novikowski, because he's a little bit in no man's land here right now. He's got Abelards just behind him by about 2.5 seconds, and Novikowski, but again, a decent run out of that right-hander there. And again, for me, one of the things that I tend to do when you're coming round that right-hander at Sheens, it's so easy to get two wheels on that left-hand side, and that ends up putting you in the car straight into the barrier, Lewis. So every single lap for these drivers is an absolute tightrope.
It's honestly, Sheens Curve is, in my opinion, one of the hardest corners in the entire country. It's such a tricky circuit, and that corner kind of exemplifies all of that. We'll take a look at the replay of the race start then and kind of see what happened down into the first couple of corners up into Druids. It was Novikov who had the sort of like the semi-defensive line. There's already drama in the background, but it just opened the door for Boothby to swing it through, got alongside, and just to be honest, picked open the position. That was beautiful from Boothby to go from basically fourth up into second. Yeah,
brilliant stuff. As we back to Mikhail Statsenko, he has got a huge train, as we see, a huge moment behind. I think that was Valentin Barriere, was it not, that was wiggling from side to side, ends up losing a position there. That was a very strange moment there, Lewis, on the exit of Surtees.
I think it was, so Patil's been off. Just saw Patil off in the background. Every time I see that car, I genuinely think DB1 Triton. It is the Clash car that I'm pretty sure just went off at Hawthorns. Might have been the one that was losing the rear end. If not, it could well have been Mikhail, and it was the side-by-side contact at Hawthorns that opened it up. Right, let's talk about this then. That's a little wide in my book from Eamon Murphy, and then the overcorrection straight off into the barrier. Zahir Issa just basically sat there thinking, what happened? What do you think about that one?
I think that's exactly what happened there. It looks like Zahir Issa was minding his own business round the outside. It was ultimately Eamon Murphy that crashed into that car there. However, from experience, Liz, we know how easy that is to do with still super cool tyres. The problem is that the margin for error here is non-existent. And we said this on the build-up, it's so difficult as a driver by yourself to get round this track, let alone trying to make a move on a corner. I think that was never going to happen round Westfield.
I think that the problem is with that kind of corner on the first lap, like you say, tyres are cold. You're probably going to have a moment there anyway when you're by yourself, but you're entering it from a tight entry it's risky on lap 1. You know it is. You've got a tight entry to such a fast corner. You've not got the grip there. Oh, as the Volante car by Aztec has been off. Not sure who's behind the wheel of that one at the moment, but either way, dropping backwards just a little bit. Certainly not ideal. It's the number 70, so Dimitrov behind the wheel right now. Just a little bit of a snap around that Grand Prix loop.
Yeah, let's have a look here. So this is the... oh, now that is potential... Is that Darren McCormack again? The 221?
No, I think it was Nick Coburn.
Sorry, yeah, that's Nick Coburn. A little bit confused because the liveries are shown slightly differently on that one, but Nick Hoban gets himself back on, and again it just shows you as soon as you put any of the wheels onto the grass, you're really going to be going backwards at a rate of knots here, Lewis.
It takes a couple of corners as well for you to get back, not only into the rhythm mentally, but also to bring the tyres back into a point. Speaking of Darren McCormack, we refocus on the Irishman, back on the attack of Novakovsky. And you were saying that gap, I remember you saying it was 2.2 seconds back to Avaladze. It is no longer that, coming down 1.6 seconds. Darren McCormack will be feeling the pressure right now from the chasing Mercedes AMG that is closing that gap down back into the prime of it, one of the Rem Velton cars. This one, the number 71, just sort of in the middle of all of the chaos. I think that might have been potentially the RHG that rejoined directly ahead as Zahir Issa on the defence just tried to hang on, but
ouch.
Well, it's rush hour.
That was that was slightly. Yeah, I have many words for it. None of them, Lewis, clean enough to put on air at this moment in time. But looking at Zahir Issa here on the recovery drive for the 777 outfit of Sim Racing Masterclass. Again, plenty of time to undo the damage here that is there just now. In 19th place, I mean, he's only 16 seconds off of the lead. So given that there's another 18 cars in front of him, easily still within a top 10, top 5 finish. Just confirmation there, incidents between cars 383, 71 and the 123 on lap 1. It's a racing incident, so that is the 383 Dalking community car. The 71, I think that was the Renvelton car, wasn't it? And the 123 was the, if it was the 123, then it was the FFS racing machine. So yeah, I get the feeling we're going to see a lot of those text boxes tonight, Lewis.
Certainly we're going to see quite a few over the next sort of 10-15 minutes. The FFS racing car, Killian Ryamin, and certainly a driver who we know likes to get a race underway quite well, where Zahir Issa going for another move on the inside of the 111 of Becker. A little bit of a flash of lights being like, look mate, if you're going to make a move, do it cleanly and get on with it, yeah? Of course, Zahir Issa probably a little bit frustrated by how this race has unfolded in the beginning. But we know that Killian Ryamin, anyway, going back to that point, loves to get a race underway in a very quick fashion. How many times when we started commentating together did he and his brother Cormac Ryamin as well pick up so many spots at the start of a race? I'm pretty sure every race for the first couple of laps, they were basically up about plus 10, plus 15 every single time. Obviously, that eventually you're going to come up snake eyes, isn't it?
It was fascinating to watch how they got on with it. I think one of the first times commentating actually for the SimGrid was at Bathurst when I was watching them too, and they're always great fun to speak to. On another note, two separate things. One, if you remember back, your boy George Boothby was your tip for the race. He's just done fastest lap of the race. He did a 1:22, I believe it was a 1:22.5 that he did there. That brings the gap now just to 1.4 seconds. But this little battle is still raging as well. Remember we said Darren McCormack was dropping back from Mikhail Novikowski just a little bit. Well, that's not happening anymore. Novikowski dropping back to that 4th place number 80 Mercedes, and the gap just 0.4 of a second. You get the feeling Darren might be looking to make a little move here.
I'm going to throw myself under the bus here a little bit, actually, because you said so nicely that I picked George Boothby. I was going to, and then I switched it to the Veloce car, which is very much in the barrier up at Hawthorne. So I'll throw myself under the barrier a little bit there on that one. Apologies to Veloce. I'm sure they won't be particularly happy, but I've always said it before, I don't believe in the commentator's curse, I only believe in bad driving, and read into that what you will, as we ride on board with Valentin Barriere. So Robbie Stapleford has picked up a couple of positions, as has Christopher as well, up into the top 10 at the moment. It's Mikhail Stetsenko and the Azhit Pirelli car starts to build a bit of a gap on this grouping, but Robbie Stapleford, the pace, the BMW, which to be fair, we never really saw too much of the M6, don't see too much of the M4 either, but I do like seeing the BMWs when they appear, because it's a good car. It's a nice, comfortable car to drive.
Yeah, it's very stable, and to be fair, you did see a lot of the M4 when it first came out, because it was massively overpowered compared to everything else. And actually, on that note, it does bring up another talking point, because you've got to take your hats off to them. Kunos have done just a wonderful job of neutralising the whole field and bringing everyone on a level playing field, more so in the 1.8 patch than I think I've ever seen at any point in ACC. Now, you go into any race, Lewis, and I don't think you can guarantee one manufacturer is going to win the race. It's definitely now a much more level playing field, and even when the SimGrid brings in like their custom BOPs and that, I think that's kind of been rendered useless with that 1.8 update, because it's just been so level.
I think we had I'll remember back to one of the kind of the bigger moments that we had when it came to BOP within the SimGrid. It was the SimGrid VCA World Cup at Spa, when we had the top 10 where 9 of them were Aston Martins. One of them was a McLaren, Robbie Stapleford, Rocket, Represent, Traitor, something. We're just going to keep rolling on that one, it's fine. Of course, we had a bit of an issue with BOP. Like I say, looking at this, these are the type of BOP discussions that I like, because it's positive. It's like, well, look at it. It looks great. That tower is full of everything. Oh, the Bentley's not maybe the greatest car. It's leading the race. You can't deny it. There's only one BMW sitting in, fair enough. McLarens are up and down the grid. Porsches up and down the grid. Mercedes up and down the grid. It's not the car that's the limiting factor, it's the driver. And as much as that can be harsh to some to hear, that's how it should be, and how it is. Did see, by the way, popping up onto the screen whilst I was on my little bit of a rant there, there was a bit of a warning get dished out. First one of the season to the SMP Esports car, the 919, pick up a warning for contact with the Ren Welton Esports Unicorns of Love Sexy Edition. Great team name, by the way.
And of course, now that I'm complimenting the 1.8 patch, of course all the moaning starts about.
Oh, of course it does.
Of course it does. But just for the likes of Ben Glasgow out there, if you're brand new to the SimGrid and to Assetto Corsa Competizione, what can you expect from these types of races, this hour-long race? And Lewis, again, from experience, it doesn't calm down, does it? It's literally 60 minutes of this level of intensity, and quite often, out of nowhere, it just ratchets up even more.
I do. Well, I mean, to be fair, sometimes we've had races like this where the first 10 minutes are mad. Then for the middle, sort of, or for the 20, 30 minutes afterwards, things start to calm down as everyone starts to play the long game. Then the pit stops happen. And then it's just like, oh, right, we forgot what we're doing. And they all just go absolutely crazy once again. It's always fantastically exciting. Certainly enjoyed this when we did the Best of British Championship last year. One that was won by the man on screen, George Boothby, and how dominant was he in a few of those races. Still trying to close down onto Novikov. We've got one of the Ren Welton cars directly ahead. That's 71, just ahead of Novikov. Boothby's not really closing that gap. The times they're setting are essentially the same almost every lap. The previous lap, Novikov did a 22.7 and then Boothby did a 22.9. The lap they've just done, they've switched it around. Novikov's done a 22.9 and Boothby's done a 22.7, i.e. they're basically doing the same stuff.
Yeah, they're just trading lap times at this point. And to be honest, I think while George Boothby would like to take that win, as we see round the outside, that is Robbie Stapleford. But have a look, because Valentin Barry fancies a little look at Druids as well. And this is exactly the point I was trying to make earlier. You can go and make a move, but Brantash, Lewis, is such a momentum-based track that if you do anything that's going to take your top speed away, you are a sitting duck for all those cars behind you. And my goodness me, are there a lot of cars? That looks like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cars within about 6 seconds on track here.
Yeah, at times like this, kind of, when we have trains, regardless of even if they're fairly far away, some people tend to focus on just the car ahead. There's a little bit wide there for Robbie Stapleford, potentially open the door for Valentin Barriere to potentially throw one down the inside, but it's not a wise one to do over this end of the circuit, but clearly under a lot of pressure is the young Englishman. But you kind of don't want to just be focused on the car ahead. You want to be focused on a few cars ahead, seeing what the long game is. Is the car ahead catching? Is a couple of cars ahead? Are they catching? Are they keeping up? There was a bit of an incident there with the 977. That is Van Droyten, the 6th placed car. Do not know what's happened. I'm going to assume slightly wide coming through the penultimate corner of Stirling's. So easy to do and potentially just loop the rear end. Of course, it could have been through contact, but that would be my guess from an initial point of view.
Well, he'd stopped the car because he's now down into 16th places, up into Druids on the inside. Is the number 44 of Valentin Barriere. Thought better of it, and we were almost waiting for the inevitable contact to happen. Thankfully, both of them managed to avoid each other. But Robbie Stapleford now into the top 10, and Robbie Stapleford into the grass in the top 10, and he loses the top 10 to Valentin Barriere there.
Oh yeah, Barriere might open the door as well. Mikel for the Ren Welton esports car behind, this one being the Ferrari. Of course, we've seen the 71, the Aston Martin that's gone a lap down now, I do believe, on our race leaders. Robbie Stapleford drops a position. Valentin Barriere and the big Bentley pushes his way past as we ride up through Hawthorns. To be fair, I feel Robbie Stapleford's the kind of driver that can return from that. Speaking of drivers returning from issues, Nick Hoban, 13th position, closing in on that. We've seen Nick Hoban off quite a few times over the first couple of laps. Took a while to get into the rhythm of the racing here in the opening rounds of the Coach Dave Sprint Series, but finally seems to be back with it as we ride on board with Dyer McCormack, still not able to find the way past Novakovsky.
The other thing that amazes me as well is the fact that, this is it for the next 60 minutes. This very, very thin, discrepancy between the cars and between the different drivers as well. That's going to be how it is for the next 60 minutes. And it's the tiniest of margins, and it always fascinates me as somebody who is, I love sim racing, but I'm not particularly fast. I just do it because, I like taking part. But watching these, and I'm tempted to use the words athletes, the work that they put into this really shows through in the consistency and the level of performance that they've almost got on tap. It's, as I said, being someone that's not up to this pace, it almost makes you jealous watching them and how instantly they can just turn it on.
Yeah, I mean, I've always said this because jumping into any sort of endurance race with me, of course, sprint racing is very different. But still, if you're the driver jumping in after the pit stop, I can never help but think I'm jumping into someone else's car though. I'm jumping into someone else's work, and I can't really get myself into the rhythm. And that's the same as even at the start of the race. When you know that it's not just your race, it's your race and someone else's. That sometimes it takes me a long time to get into the rhythm and actually be able to push, 3, 4, 5 laps as Hibernau looks to the inside of Sholobov, not able to make that one stick on the SMP Racing esports car. But these drivers, man, they just jump in and they're just like, boom, here's the fastest lap that I can do. And it's right on the money, right on the limit, every single lap time, bam, bam, bam. Every time. It is honestly quite ridiculous riding back on board with Dyer McCormack. Still no way past the McLaren of Novakovsky, and that's critical because less than 1 second behind, well, Abelads is right there as we focus on two very bright cars battling it out.
Yep, going side by side into Druids, and that looks like Killian Ryan Meenan and the Aston Martin takes that position from the 18th position car of Florian Becker. Again, an absolute stalwart in that Porsche there. So another position down for the 111 machine, and Jonas van Droyten still in 17th position, but looks like Patrick Nage fancies a little bit of that one as we see on board from the grill cam in the Mercedes. I love these creative cameras from Mike Yao on the broadcast direction. But Darren McCormack, just on that conversation you were saying about the setups here, as we see them still going side by side. How long is this one going to go? We're almost going 3 wide. There's no danger that's going to be this contact between the 977 of Jonas van Droyten and Killian Ryan. I think Van Droyten has had to give that position up then, as we see Florian Becker losing out as well to Patrick Nage, just who gets ahead. But back to that point you were making about setups, and yes, I absolutely see what you say about having to share somebody else's car, But the way that things are now, especially at this level, you know, these are all team drivers, or for the most part team drivers, and their day job is to go around and get setups. In fact, in some of these cases, the drivers don't even really set the cars up themselves. They've got other people who give them the setups based on their own driving performance and their own driving style and things like that. That's contact! Florian Becker gets absolutely nuked from behind Zolobov, and that car is going to be worth about, what, £2.50, and the scrapyard after that one, that is not a pretty looking Porsche.
Well, we've just been dished out our first penalty of the season. Congratulations to the car number 7 for picking up the first one. Someone's got to be the first. And to be fair, we're 22 minutes into the race, so, you know, a good shout on that one. Carbon Sim Sport, by the way, with that first penalty. Now, this is a 10-second time penalty, but it also, all penalties this season will come with licence points attached. And basically, the way it works is the licence points will add up over the season, of course. On the third licence point, they'll get a 15-second penalty in the next race, or the next round. So the licence points there is a deterrent. So it's like, look, if you're going to have an incident, that's fine. You're given 2 incidents that only affect the race that you're in, depending on how severe the incident is. But, you know, if it's just a time penalty, 2 penalties in that are sort of a given. There's your time penalty, deal with it in the race, and then after that, race control start going, right, you're clearly not getting the message, so let's start giving you a little bit harsher stuff, building in intensity, which I think is the right call. So Patrick Nodge out a little bit wide, Florian Becker comes back in and just tapped from behind by the SMP car. I don't know how I feel about that one being a penalty. If that, obviously, race control will be taking a look at that. I don't know how I feel about that one, because it's drivers tripping up over each other and they're all kind of changing line.
We've got a yellow flag, 25, and that is Nowakowski. So that is a huge moment to Nowakowski off from third place, and that car looks absolutely wrecked. And in fact, I get a feeling, just a gut feeling, that might be a hardware failure. It's
sat off in an odd spot. You know, to have it pulled in, I don't know, like on that one, normally if you have a crash there, it's going to be quite hard and you're going to be spat back out from the barrier towards race. And of course, you could have brought it back over. Not necessarily sure. Typically, if it's a hardware failure, I'm not sure if I'm feeling hardware failure on that one. I don't know. To be fair, we've only seen a car stationary by the side of the road, so we're trying to play a bit of Mystic Meg here. DC apparently is driving once again, but the car is, I think, you know, as expected in a corner like that, it's pretty toast.
I'm just trying to save his blushes, that's all. Right, let's see what happens here then. So he's coming down, everything's normal. Okay, but it's obviously going to be on the right-hander here. Let's have a look. So we're on board, the car turns right.
It was only for a short while though, very, very short, which tells me that it might not be wheel, because the wheel, you know, by the time you've got to, if you had like a faulty connector, you've unplugged it, say for example, if it's a USB, well, yeah, USB being,
you've unplugged
it and you've plugged it back in again. Yeah, it's something like that that might have caused a screen freeze or something like that, that's basically just set everything to neutral and then back again. That's rough though.
Wrecked. That car is absolutely destroyed. Look at him. He's trying to do some grass cutting there, and I mean, fair play to him. He's still trying to get that car back in, but that is, wow.
Well, every position that you finish in, so for the next race, as the pit window opens in the middle 10 minutes of this one, for the next race, the grid is set by the race finishing order in this race, with the exception of the top 10 that has a top 10 reverse grid over the race. Yeah, kind of didn't really have to spell that one out to you too much. It kind of makes sense. But that means that sometimes you're going to want to just keep going, because rather than starting in 35th, you might be able to start 30th. Hey, if enough people retire, especially through the pit window, we know how dangerous and sketchy these parts of the race really can be.
Yeah, we absolutely can. Lewis, I want to get your opinion on something. Ablad, in the 41, in 4th position now. I think there's a very strong chance that we are going to have an amazing performance by SimGrid.pro, by Vides, getting them, both of them on the podium tonight.
Well, let's be honest with Ablads. We know Abeladze is quick, but who's about to jump in that car?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Igor Ognikov, who we know is a fan favourite to the fans of Simware.pro, the Russian contingent that have been supporting Igor Ognikov for such a long time. And boy, is he a quick driver. And so the idea that he gets and Abeladze is into the pit lane, so Igor Ognikov will be stepping into that car momentarily, and that is going to be quick. That is going to be a very, very fast car indeed over the final portion of this race. Once Tyre McCormack comes into the pit lane, it's Tinko van der Velde who'll jump in, and there is Abeladze in the pit lane, and Ognikov stepping in behind the wheel.
And do you know what I love is the fact that, being here, you've been able to see him change as well. And I was his most openly vocal critic about how temperamental he could be, because when he lost it, he would really, really start being an absolute nuisance. And last year, that all changed. Everything about him. It was like there was a switch that clicked inside him, and it all came together. And honestly, I could not be more proud of the performance that he was putting on. As up the inside goes Sven Heritage for Prime E Racing there, and that wasn't a move for position, because that was the 919 that was getting a lap put down there. But go back to Igor Ognikov, you're absolutely spot on when you say that he's blindingly fast, and he's also now got the temperament to match. And honestly, one of the ones to watch for this season.
Still has his moments. We've still seen a couple over the course of 2021, but like you say, trying to figure it out. 2021 was a learning year for all of us. I once asked him a very long question in English, to which did not get much response, which instant regret. Poor guy having to deal with my questions. They're not very good, but his driving does the talking, and I think that's the really, really important thing. So other cars entering the pit lane, of course. To explain the tower to you, the number one that's by the leaderboard on the orange, that means they've not set their stop yet. They've not finished or completed the stationary time in the pit lane and the required tyre and fuel. The stop go 30 that has appeared next to Riley, that of course being the Volante car. That's the speeding in the pit lane, and that is a rough one, and so easy to do here.
And that's exactly what I was saying you don't want to do, just purely because, if that was Riley on his way out, then yeah, that's on him. But if that was Nick Babin on the way in, you feel even worse, because you've tried to, and Nick did a brilliant job of trying to get that round. In the long and short of it, yes, it's going to cost them a couple of positions. Still 30 minutes to go, so it might not cost them too much. But yeah, you still don't want to have that on your conscience. Thankfully, though, 2 races tonight. It's plenty of time to make up for it.
Well, we'll see as we ride on board. We're focused rather on Igor Ognikov, and you can see the gap up ahead to the number 80 of Tinko van der Velde going into Hawthorns now. So Ognikov's got a bit of work to do to close that one back. Of course, the 80 and the 41 were separated by less than a second prior to the pit stop, when it was their teammates behind the wheel. Tyre McCormack just leading in that little battle, but really, really not by much. Abeladze was putting the pressure on quite a lot. Ognikov now needs to take over the pressure himself, as we're not even halfway through the pit window. We've already seen most of the grid take a trip down into pit lane, which I think is quite interesting.
Absolutely, and the thing is that it'll be interesting to compare the difference in pace in this race compared to race 2, Lewis, because of course they're allowed to change their tyres and fuel, but that gets nuked out on the second race as well, so they're really going to have to manage things a little bit more. And I can't see them taking new tyres in the pit stop with only half an hour in, although to be fair, if it is an option that they can do, they might be tempted to just absolutely gun it. But even so, I can't see them burning the tyres in half an hour.
No, I don't think it's necessarily. I don't necessarily means about. I'm sorry, I've got Mike in my ear. I was getting a bit confused by what we were saying there, and getting completely lost on topic there. My goodness, it's the idea of it being a final warning. No warning given out to the 449. straight to a final one. That really was a hashtag blame Michael. Yeah, apologies there. No, I kind of agree with what you're saying. Sometimes these cars might be on the full send, but are they going to burn out a tyre in that time? They should be good to go for an hour. It's more the post the 40-minute mark where they burn them out, but half hour, surely that's fine.
You would think so, but again, it depends on how aggressive they are, especially, as I said earlier, since that 1.8 update, how aggressive they are on those first 2-3 laps. That is vital for the longevity of the tyre. But again, we'll just have to wait and see how it goes out. But Novikov's still a pit here. He's leaving it towards the end of this pit window here. So is Manos Gerardis in that 31.
I think it's track position. I think it's keeping track position is critical, and that can be not just you, but also lap traffic. Speaking of lap traffic and having to deal with it, the 77 that we're focused on with, when Sven Hettich was behind the wheel a bit earlier on in the race, this was the one that was having a bit of issues with some of that lap traffic, and that's where, to be honest, if you have a large contingent of lap traffic directly ahead of you, and you're in the pit window, go into the pit lane. Don't waste your time trying to get through each car by car, because even if they're getting blue flags and jumping out of the way nicely, you're going to lose time. And so if you can avoid doing that, that's where it kind of comes in. I don't think Novikov's been sort of given too much poor running inside the traffic. The 777, by the way, stop and go 30. It's not their day, is it, in this first race of the season? After starting from second, the Sim Racing Masterclass car, or starting from up there on the grid anyway, not going well.
Yeah, it's been better days at the office, sir. I mean, you saw Zahir Issa getting the brunt side of dealings earlier on in the race, and now a stop-go 30. I can see this turning into a quick pit stop and heading off to McDonald's. To be honest with you, at the end of this one, there's not too much time in between the two races, but yeah, for sure, that's going to be frustrating. This is just the way that these races go, Lewis, is the fact that sometimes the cookie crumbles your way and sometimes, it's just not happening. But also interested to see that Charlie Crossland behind the wheel of that number 62 BMW G2 esports machine just now, and down into 11th place. But remember, there's a car up in front that still has to pit there, but he doesn't look as settled, as planted in that car as his teammate does.
Well, this is the thing, though, between them jumping over into the BMW. Of course, between the two of them, Stapleford's more used to driving a McLaren. Of course, I'm sure they've done plenty of driving in their spare time anyway, but they're typically used to driving in the McLaren. Charlie Crossland used to, or at least from memory, driving in the legendary Mercedes Ford Zilla car. Great. Nice to throw those two together. Great partnership between Mercedes and Ford on that one. But my point is, as much as the Mercedes isn't too dissimilar in architecture to the BMW, the way they drive, massively different. Then when you throw into account the 1.8 patch, which yes was a fair while ago and there's plenty of time to get used to it, still it brings in a bit of issues, of irregularities, especially around a circuit like this where they're turned up to 10. Absolutely.
You're when you're saying about the difference between the Mercedes and the BMW, it comes back to what we were saying earlier. The BMW is such a wonderfully stable car. If you're just getting into ACC, BMW is a perfect choice because it's fast, it's solid, it gives you a lot of confidence. The Merc is fast, but it just seems unstable at times. It just seems like the rear end, when you put the power down, just wants to snap away from you at the most inopportune times. You're kidding me? That didn't just happen. Tell me that Bischoff he didn't pull it off, but come on. Kudos and bonus points for style for trying to throw it around the outside of Druids. And I tell you what, he looks like he's got him already.
Yeah, still trying to look for a way round is Marco Bischoff on the Ballas esports car. Gotta say, the Ballas esports car of catcher, very nice looking livery team. I like myself a bit of the Ballas esports team, and of course a little bit of a tribute to the issues over in Ukraine on their roof. Of course, I know a lot of teams have got their own on there. Some were trying to, and unfortunately weren't able to attribute anything on their livery to that, just down to timing and such. Marco Bischoff still not able to get through in the Kramer Racing esports car, looking brave enough to try something at Druids, might be brave enough to try something elsewhere. Speaking of Druids and speaking of being brave, Samira Brahimi, fantastic speed that we've seen over the previous sort of 12 months, driving a whole multitude of cars, Bentleys, McLarens and stuff, now finds himself in a Ferrari for Remvelton, not able to find its way into 9th position, and now might have to keep an eye on Charlie Crossland sat directly behind.
Yeah, Samir Brahimi is Mr. Versatile, isn't he? He can, he really has the Midas touch, can do anything that he puts his hand to there. Although Kaka in the 486 Bentley is having trouble trying to get round that first right-hander there. But Bischoff, I mean, short of throwing the wrench in the kitchen sink right now, the Kramer Racing esports machine just cannot get past it in that Porsche. And that Bentley, it's a wide boy anyway, but I mean, that thing is about the size of 2 double-decker buses right now from the way that that 486 is being driven of Kaka.
I was wondering how long we were going to be into a broadcast before we start calling it a wide boy or something in that vein. By the way, it is thick with 2 C's, not a CK. She's a big girl. Speaking, by the way, of penalties and such, we've finished with the pit window, and I don't know about you, but 28th place, that is still an orange number 1 next to. So that tells me, and all of us at home, there was the pit window has not been completed from Paul Batty as Samira Brahimi straight down the inside and getting past the 44 Joliet community car. So up into 9th spot though.
What's happened to the lead? Chartier is in the lead from the 42. We missed that. The 42's in 2nd place, a second behind.
I'm lost now.
There we go. What?
And as that's happening, finally, the big Bentley makes a mistake. Catcher down the road a little bit into Paddock Hill. Same mistake we saw a couple of laps ago, only this one done a little bit more to the extreme. And the 977 does get past. So Marco Bischoff up inside the top 20 with eyes forward in that Porsche. But yeah, you're absolutely right. What has gone on? Well, here is the 42 going through the final corner, going for a little bit of the chop on Yaroslav Honzik, and pretty sure Honzik's just going to fire this one in at some point. Looks to the outside at Paddock Hill. Ooh.
I'll be completely honest, I think that was very naughty from the 42 there.
I agree.
Several blocking attempts there, and then deliberately, and again, this is just an opinion here, moving over at the left-hand side on a braking point. Yeah, that's good. Who the heck was that? There was that Janis Saknis in the 31 that was doing a bit of rallycross there.
But it's a partial rallycross circuit. We've to be fair, it's not. But we've seen plenty of rallycross and sim racing around here. Yeah, I mean, race control will take a look. I have absolutely no doubt of that. But I'm in the same camp as you. I think the 42 a little bit too aggressive on the defence there from Bykov. And just kind of came across. It's really easy to do that though into Paddock Hill. I'm not trying to say it was intentional. Differing lines going down as you're breaking different parts of the track. It's quite cambered on the run. We'll ride on board with Mikhail Bykov, as you can see, just trying to keep the Ferrari behind. There's the switch back over to the left. Yeah, I mean the camber and such in the corner. But the thing is, if you're going to be Yaroslav Honzik, you've got to go somewhere at that point, and when the car ahead's moved about 14 different times, eventually you've got to commit. Yaroslav Honzik committed. I kind of think it's just a racing incident.
Yeah, let's have a look on board with Jardier there. You can see, there's not really anything in that at all.
It does come from quite far back.
He does, but the thing is that he's going to the outside, and I don't know. It's a silly incident. I mean, certainly. But other than that, I don't see any malice. I completely take that comment back about the 42 on the braking there. I think it's an accident that didn't, or an incident that didn't need to happen. Neither of the two of them, fortunately, had any real instance with it. What I'm more concerned with is I'm watching the 42's pace drop off here. Now that last lap was about 0.4 of a second, but Yeah, this. They are losing a little bit of time here, and I'm starting to get concerned that Tinko van der Velde might be looking to try and take advantage of this.
Yeah, not necessarily sure how this one is going to unfold. Either way, Jaroslav Honzik is well in control of things at the moment with a 1.5 second gap after making that pass. And if the 42 is struggling on speed, well, this could work out very, very nicely indeed. So we've got a couple of notes from race control coming in. The 81 and the 995. We'll tick that one off straight away. Racing incident between the two. 81 being the SMP Racing Esports car. The 995 being the Remwelton Esports Unicorns of Love Sexy Edition. Love that team name. Then the 129, the 777. Time penalty to the 777. They just got to stop and go 30. Now they've got a 10-second time penalty. And of course, an instant point as well. That one is, of course, Sim Racing Masterclass. And to add to issues, the 521 and the 995. 995 again on the receiving end of it, being the Remwelton car, and the 521 being the Wheelspin Esports car. That was the one that we saw backwards in qualifying going into the penultimate corner, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was, and I'm just, my heart goes out to that 777 team. It's like,
that's rough.
I don't know what they've done this week, Lewis, but they've done something bad, and this is obviously getting their comeuppance for it.
That 10-second time penalty, by the way, I know it is Raymond Mooney behind the wheel, but of course remember that the penalty that is given out based on the lap that it was given, or the lap that the penalty was on, that's where the instant point is, or the license point is dished. So whilst Raymond Mooney is the one with the 10-second time penalty, I do believe it will be Issa who was the one behind the wheel at the point of them getting that penalty. So it should be the penalty dished out that way, as we'll focus on the attacks from Jonathan Riley in the Volante Aztec Simsport car. This is a car that was inside the top 10, nearly got in there in qualifying, finished 11th position in the qualifying session. After the stop and go 30 for speeding in the pit lane, one of only two cars to have received that penalty. Of course, them and the 777 that Mooney's behind the wheel of at the moment. Obviously very rough, but to be fair, still in the race, still going. We'll be starting the next race from inside the top 30, and who knows what can happen in the next race.
Absolutely. Let's keep an eye on what is going to happen here, though. And this is the other thing, and I say this almost ad nauseum here, Lewis, is that it doesn't matter where you are on the field. There is always a fight. You never get any respite. You're always constantly fighting here. It's so fun, but it's also absolutely exhausting. As we see Artur Cernacki there getting a little bit wide there, gets away with it, but I'm just want to check, and when you hear Michael Hamlet just gasping for air, in the back of your in the back of your head. So this is a drive-through penalty for car 111 and 919. So the 111 getting a drive-through. Now that is given by the stewards, from what we're hearing, Lewis, if the driver has been deemed to have been dangerous to other drivers. They try and give only time penalties this season, is what we've kind of the discussion was. So a drive-through, honestly, this is not what we were expecting. Yeah, that's a little bit awkward. We'll maybe try and see if we can see what happened with them, but that's not the best as well, because that does have big championship implications, because of course, remember, the whole point of these championship points is that they can affect your season. You get 4 points, and then it's a qualifying ban, 5 points on your licence, and it's a drive-through at the next race. Yeah. So, and again, you've got the team licence points as well. So, yeah, it's a slippery slope.
And it's not a long season. I've said it before, I am someone who's well behind a licence point structure to give actual penalties that are more so than the penalties for the incident itself. Because if you're knocking up a 10-second time penalty every race, you're kind of thinking, they happen, fair enough. But there's no further repercussion. There's no okay, you're actually racking these up at quite a rate, and this needs to be stamped out fairly easily. And the race controller are starting to get on top of this and dish this out as quick as possible and sort of keep this on. round one is kind of expected with a new penalty system that issues are going to come out. People are going to have their moments, their issues. They're going to rack up a couple of penalties. What that means is for the next 4 rounds of the season, for the next 8 races, you're walking on a tightrope.
And that's a tightrope you don't want to be on, because if anything, it is bound to play on the driver's minds. So we see Felix Arndt for Prime E-Racing doing a cracking move around the outside of one of the cars, getting put a lap down there as we cut back to Artur Sarnacki. But it is a tightrope, as you said, but you're then thinking about it all the time. How much pressure does that put onto the drivers, and how much more nervous are you when you're around other cars thinking, right, okay, damn it, I need to be extra careful about this, I need to be extra clean. Surely that's going to come out of your lap times.
Well, clearly, by the way, race control, when it came to that decision, did get in our ear as well. The 111 got the drive-through penalty, fair enough. The alphasport.com car that was the one that was spun out on the exit of Druids, if I remember correctly, and it was the SMP car. I'm pretty sure it might well have been the 919 was the one that spun it out, and I wasn't really sure how to pick that one apart myself, but clearly something else might have happened, because the drive-through penalties that were given to the 111 was also given to the 919 SMP Racing esports car as well. So the drive-through penalty has been given to both of them. Now, I'm actually kind of one of those ones that's also for this, because everyone tells me when there's an instant where it's like, oh, it's the fault of both drivers, it's a racing incident. I'm like, no, it's not. 2 people are at fault. That means there's penalties for both of them, in my book. If someone has made an egregious mistake, they still need to be penalised for the egregious mistake, even if someone else has done the same thing to them. Like, one does not counteract the other.
Absolutely, and it's a difficult one because you hear it all the time, especially in chat and from all of our wonderful, imaginary race controllers. It's such a difficult job to try and determine what is the right penalty for drivers to have, and just going, oh well, he did it. That's not an excuse. You're absolutely right. It's not an alibi. It's not a get out of jail free card. If they do it, that you kind of lose your own argument when you're saying, oh well, it's okay because they did it. No, it doesn't. Yeah. It's like they did it. You're noticed that they did it, so therefore it's still wrong.
Well, I'd almost be in the so hang on. So you did it intentionally then?
Yeah. So you knew they did it, but you still went and did it anyway.
And so you were putting it's like it's a slippery slope. Race control. I've been race direction for one series once. Note how I use the word one and once, because it's not something I would ever do again, because it is a thankless task, and any time you have a race steward, respect the race steward. They have such a hard task to do, to pick apart these incidents as quick as possible, to come to a decision that's fair and consistent, and then deal with the rubbish that is normally thrown their way by the team going, that's such an unfair penalty, I can't. It's like, oh God, yeah, okay, great. And without them, in the same way as with marshals and stuff in real life, of course, not to the same degree, because how many marshals and stuff we have, but when it comes to people volunteering their time, or even if they're being paid for it and such, the point being, we don't go racing without that. We don't really go racing without a race control, without someone looking over what's going on. So thank them for being there, and thank them for giving you the time that allows you to then go racing.
And just to prove that, I was actually commentating on a race at the weekends, and I think it was F1 2021, and the race control / stewards didn't decide on anything, because the penalties are all assigned in game, so it was just decided just leave them as they are, and they went mental. They went absolutely bonkers at it. So on the point of, it's a thankless task, because you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. The decision you make is not going to make it's going to make someone unhappy either way, and it again is testament to the level that these drivers are taking it. How often have we had in the past 5-10 years when you talk about sim racing, they look at you like, oh, it's just kids sitting in their bedroom playing computer games. It's like, well, we're way past that now. We're now talking about this matters so much to these drivers that they're literally willing to pick fights over the results of these outcomes.
Oh yeah, I get it all the time at work when I'm like, I'm off to go do a sim racing broadcast, and they're like, you're off to do a what now? A game? That's why I'm thankful to have a manager that actually understands sim racing, so shout out to them. But I will say, in this race at the moment, someone who I've been a little bit disappointed on when it comes to pace is our man Yiga Rognikov. Not had the pace to close down onto the number 80, the Williams eSports car of Tinko van der Velde, and you can see issues arising from behind. Gripax Engineering, Jonas Savalainen, right there, waiting to make that move.
He certainly is, isn't he? I mean, the 49 isn't a car that is too far off of the top of the results anyway. I mean, Gripax Engineering are usually so fast. You don't realise how long it took me actually to realise it was Gripax Engineering. I spent about 6 months pronouncing it Gripax.
I had the same thing. I was like looking at it being
and then you realise it, you're like, oh, right.
Funny joke. Gotcha. You're making a joke about being fast and people saying you've got a grip. Gotcha. With you.
Yeah, I should have got that a long time ago, should I?
Yeah. I do like always the colours. I can't remember what it's called, but like in TV and stuff where you've got the colour coding and stuff, and in print media and stuff. You always have it on every one of the grip packs cars. You have it, and on the McLaren, it used to be on the roof, if I remember correctly. On the AMG, on the McLaren though, it's on the side bit, not the door, but the bit that's ahead of the door. I think that's quite good.
Yeah, and that brings up another point as well. Again, we're talking about the teams and how seriously they take it. The livery design is just on point, and a lot of these teams actually have things like brand guidelines. They'll obviously be in ACC, they'll maybe be in Race Room or Assetto Corsa or iRacing, and they have their designs that go with them in terms of like their car liveries, their social media. It's just crazy to think this is where we are now with little old sim racing.
Yeah, doing a little bit of livery design myself. I don't mind if someone shows me a car doing the liveries like inside a team. If they go, make this livery on that car, I go, great, that's fine. But it's when someone's like, oh, well, we've got to have this that takes up 1/3 of this side of the car and it needs to be visible from this angle. And I'm like, nope, not doing any of that. None of that is happening. But no, I think sim racing liveries is always something that I like to talk about, because sometimes I don't give it enough plaudits, enough shout outs. Jaroslav Honzik driving the best livery of the day. Obviously doesn't have one on the car. It's a default livery in the sim, but fair enough.
I love designing liveries, mostly because when I do it, it's like handing a 5-year-old some Crayola. Meanwhile, Sheldon Muscat, that in the grand scheme of things, that's not a massive deal. But again, it just shows you how quickly you can go from hero to zero. You looked at it and it was a small mistake, but again, that's 4 positions gone.
Yeah, but Graham Hill's won. I mean, to be fair, if you want to really know of issues in this race, I mean, I think a little bit earlier with the R8G car that went straight on there, Nick Hoban behind the wheel, if I remember correctly, going straight on and losing a whole heap. Of course, it was earlier in the day, so fair enough. But it's such an easy corner to pick your braking power, because I found this a lot with this circuit, is that most of the braking zones around here aren't done in a straight line. Normally, Misano, you come down into a corner, it's a dead straight line into a hairpin or into a right, left hand or whatever. How many braking zones around here are actually straight? This one, just about, but not really. You're kind of bringing it over from the left-hand side over into the right. Yep, final corner. Fair enough. Normally is a fairly straight, but into quite a high-speed off-camber corner. Turn 1, absolutely not. The least straight braking zone to mankind. Druid, you're normally defending from someone behind. Graham Hill, you're bringing it back over from the left-hand side of the circuit to the right. It's quite a hard circuit because you're moving over all of the bumps constantly.
And when you're doing that as well, no 2 laps are the same, and that sounds like such a cliche to say, but you'd be very hard pressed to find a driver that can do exactly the same lap in race conditions one after the other. You might be able to replicate it over the entirety of the race, but certainly I really struggle to see any driver that takes exactly the same line and 2 consecutive laps on a race here, just because, you know, every single time it's different. They've maybe got a little bit of toe from the car behind, in front. They're maybe trying to make a move. They're maybe thinking about being defensive. So, you know, there's so much to think about on the fly, and these drivers have to make so many mental calculations. And when you're on about the brake, the effect on the car is so profound, because if you're not used to watching GT3 racing, you think, well, the brake just stops the car. Well, it's way more than that. Yeah. When you think about the weight transfer and the way that the weight is balanced on the car, you know, the momentum, when you accelerate, the car pitches up by default. That's what physics will make the car do. So when you're on the brake, it puts the weight back onto those front tyres. So if you're on a high-speed corner and you're struggling, that's where you'll find. If you try and do that in the middle of a corner and just dab the brakes a little bit, then you're going to be in for a bad time. But beforehand, it just ends up giving that little bit more bite, and actually ends up giving you more speed through the corner, which seems a very strange thing to say.
Yeah, I was having a chat with a couple of race drivers about this. This is in karting terms as well. As they're still looking to go for that move, is Bischoff still not able to get past on Kamenev at the moment. But in karting, to use that example, is that there was a couple of corners. Now this is more down towards engine power and stuff as well, but it still tracked slightly. Was that they were finding out that to weight transfer, some corners are flat, but sometimes it's faster to lift slightly through the corner than it is to do it flat, because it puts the weight back on the front of the car, even briefly, just to put the weight back on there and then do it. I mean, or sometimes even to lift for a corner. Turn 8, sometimes in V8 supercars in Adelaide, they just lift off to get the nose in. But sometimes you tap the brake to get the nose really down. Bischoff's still not able to get past Kamenev. Yeah, sometimes they're holding the throttle and tapping the brake to get the nose down, to get the weight on the front, so it guides the corner through even nice. It's those kind of things. Us mere mortals, we just, it's a brake pedal and it slows the car down, and the pedal on the right makes it go faster. It gives it more noise and makes it go in a straight line quicker. These guys attack it in such a different aspect.
Absolutely loving watching this as the race comes down to the final 2 minutes, and I can imagine, we know how big Jaroslav Honzig's grin is on his stream. It is going to be absolutely massive. If any of you were watching his stream a couple of weeks ago on one of the other leagues that he takes part in, and he won the race with 2 laps to go, the 3 cars in front of him just decided to all have a little bit of a dance and take each other out, and Jaroslav was there to save the day, jumped from 4th to 1st. I think it was at Kyalami. No, it was at Donington, actually, I tell a lie. And honestly, the grin on his face could not have been wider if he tried. An amazingly popular racer. You know why? He's just so friendly, so lovable and warm. He's such a character, and he's doing a brilliant job out there in the lead of the race, and we do not have too much longer left to go.
Yeah, we'll refocus on him in a few moments' time, as I believe he comes around to potentially start the final lap of the race running through Paddock Hill. We'll keep our eyes focused and pinned on this battle, because Bischoff is looking to find any opportunity to pass Kamenev every time, searching, being like, is it here, is it here, is it here? I mean, brave to look into basically every corner around Brands Hatch, but still not able to find that opportunity to pass.
And the thing is that sometimes it's a case of you're almost studying your opponent, aren't you? You're watching them. You're almost setting the move up several laps in advance. You'll maybe sell them that you're going to go one direction, then you're going to go the other. But it's not going to happen here, and this is it. This is now go time. And if I'm honest, Kamenev is now going to be on high alert, because he knows that Bischoff is going to be desperate to make this move work on the final lap here. And all it is about is now just that Bentley keeping to his lines, keeping that thing solid, and he'll keep to that 17th place. But here he is, the big man himself. He is looking very happy here, Lewis.
Yeah, what a way to start the season. We know this will be a popular win. We always speak of the likes of SimGrid.pro when they win. People love it. Well, people will love this. Jaroslav Honzik, George Boothby, first race win of the season, and take a look at the smiles. That was hard work, but certainly worth it. Just desserts certainly given out there, and Jaroslav Honzik takes victory by 2.6 seconds. Fairly controversial in some degree. We'll have to take a look. Still, the move comes from Bischoff. That one's never going to work. Certainly not at this level of the game, but good attempt.
Yeah, he needs a medal that says I tried. That's certainly what he's done there. But Jan Willem van Ommen here on the back of Chris Hartveld. The two of them are going to go side by side. This is the last battle then that we've got on the track. This is down in the Hawthorns. And again, look at how much that Mercedes is pressured. And there's contact on the final lap. And the Mercedes gets shown to the grass. And Jan Willem van Ommen gets that position. But yeah, that was a little bit rugged, shall we say?
Yeah, the Jan Willem van Ommen. Obviously, it says GTWR given the position back. To be fair, that's fair.
Yeah, that's good to see.
This was actually the Dolkin Community car, of course, that he shares with Darren King. I think that's fair enough. This is a car that's been in the eyes of the stewards already this evening, so that is absolutely fair enough. We'll take the top 10, by the way, from that race, and we will reverse it. So Jaroslav Honzik will have to start his way from 10th position. Of course, directly behind that, the number 42 SimWare.Pro by VDES, directly behind Mikhail Bykov finishing that one. Tinko van der Velde for the Williams esports car from into third position, and then fourth place would go the other SimWare.Pro by VDES car, that one being the number 41 Yegorov Rognikov behind that. Gripax Engineering's not able to get by. Jonas Savalainen finishing in 5th position. The final finishes inside the top 10, of course, those that will be reversed around. The number 77 of Prime E-Racing, the 449 of Yazheat Pirelli, and then the number 91 Sasha Glatter behind the wheel of the racework.com, the number 44 that one being the Jardier community car. So a good day for the Yazheat and Jardier bunch. And the number 62, Charlie Crossland behind the wheel of the BMW G2 esports car. I think it is about time, though, that we catch up with our race winners. Jaroslav Honzik and George Boothby join us in the commentary booth. I am going to go straight to Mr. Jaroslav Honzik. Of course, a race win. Let's focus on the positives. How are you feeling right now?
Oh, great! Like, I can't feel any better, right? Like, we gained like 4 positions or 5 positions this race. So top job from George for quali start of the race, first stint, and then I just brought it home with 1 overtake. So super good, super good.
Now let's talk about that overtake. Of course, coming down into Paddock Hill, Mikhail Bykov. How's your view on that incident?
Well, I just saw the replay and I feel like it's not a big deal when you rewatch it, because I think the Bykov, because he was on the outlap, so his pressures and everything and driving wasn't on the drive. So he was making a little bit of mistakes, and he made a huge mistake in the last corner. And I was just basically, I didn't even was planning to overtake him, but he just came across me coming into the first corner a little bit, and he braked very, very early as well. So I don't think it's a bit of just a tiny mistake. I'm glad we didn't crash more. That basically the only thing that happened that we had a little touch, but it's unfortunate, obviously. But as there was no further action, I'm happy. We are clean.
Yeah, no, I was going to ask about the car. Now, you're someone that's driven plenty of different cars in sim racing. Normally we've seen you racing within the McLaren here on Assetto Corsa competition. How's the Ferrari? How's the Ferrari around here?
Well, we won, so I think Ferrari's amazing. I think Ferrari's amazing. Can't really complain. It drives very well. In the first sector, it's really, really nice. The only problem is the 2 fast right-handers. It's a bit of an understeer from the car, but obviously the car has really good pace. I really can't complain today.
And we'll pass it off to George Boothby. Thank you, Jaroslav. George, first couple laps of the race obviously looked a little bit dicey out there, but you got through down into Druids up into second position. Talk about that little sort of moment, the little move in there.
Hey, yeah, it was a really good start because as soon as the lights went green, everyone sort of pulled away from me because the Ferrari isn't that good at starting, so I wanted to just pull to the right because you do not want to be on the outside for turn 1. It's obviously off-cambered, slidey, and then you're going into another right-hander hairpin. So the outside is the no-go zone. So I headed over to the right, and as predicted, the car on the outside, the McLaren, slid wide, so I got the inside of him. And then I think there was contact with the front too. I'm not quite sure, but it just meant the Mercedes went a little bit wide in the hairpin, so I just saw a gap and went for the move, and it worked out. Thankfully, I was given the space, and I managed to pull away from the guys behind. But that Bentley was so fast. Novikov in the first stint, just top drive, insane drive from him, and we just got quite lucky that we did a perfect pit stop, and then the next guy was a little bit, cautious, a bit nervous maybe, coming out the pits, and then Jardia just pounced.
Now, I'm kind of, this is a question more so from me, teaming up with someone like Jaroslav Honzik, obviously with a fair following and streaming at the moment, keeping his eyes open on his YouTube channel. Do you kind of feel the pressure, George, teaming up with someone who's a famous YouTube superstar?
Well, you know how it is trying to...
You're asking a person with like 300,000 subscribers.
Yeah, I know.
It can be tough. It can be tough carrying one of these influencers, but we make it work. We make it work.
Now, what's possible throughout the rest of the season is the championship, surely, after a win like that.
Obviously, we want to do as good as we can, and we're looking at the championship. It would be silly if we said we weren't. We'd be lying. But there are some tracks which really do not suit the Ferrari, like, at all. So we're just going to try and make the most of these rounds where we know the car's pretty good. And then if we can just try and outperform the car a bit on our tough rounds, who knows? A championship is long, stuff happens throughout. It's not always the person that, wins the most races that wins the championship. It just takes one crash or one mistake, So we're just going to be in it for the long haul, see what happens.
Also, we're starting in a frenzy now, in a P10. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard.
We're in the doghouse now.
I feel like I'm taking up all of your time to get back out there and get practicing and getting ready for the race coming up. Good luck, but congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Right, now it's back to me and you. Unfortunately, now everyone has to listen to our voices again, David, so it's sort of a bit of a trip down now.
Well, it's a difficult line to follow, isn't it? Having between them, I think they've probably got the better part of 1 million subscribers. I've got about 20, so we can add that to the little mix. And between us, I think we'll have a good little run there. But yeah, look, they're very, very happy and rightfully so. But, in between races, always you get a few bits of information put into your ear, Lewis, and I'm hearing some very, very big rumblings.
So we are hearing in our ear that it is a penalty going the way of... I don't know if I'm allowed to say this out in public. I'm sure Mike Hamlet will stop me as soon as I'm speaking. So I don't actually have anything in our penalties booth. We're hearing that it's probably going to be a penalty going the way of the number 75 Yancey Richard Milkov, which makes that interview really awkward. But that's fine. Apparently it's a 5-second time penalty, so quite a light one, which will drop them down into second position, which does mean they start the next race from ninth. So it does mean that the opening race of the season should be then going the way of the number 42 SimWare.Pro car, Alexander Novikov and Mikhail Bykov. That one we'll have to confirm 110% with you, but that is the words that we are getting. Those kind of things, that can be a bit deflating if you're in a team. You finished a race, you finished on a high, you're going straight into another race, you're on that high, and then suddenly you read and you think, oh, right.
It can be to a certain extent, but they have to they have to keep their spirit up. It was an amazing performance, so the penalty can't take that away, the fact that they crossed that line first. Yes, they got a penalty, and yes, it means on paper they end up going down, they end up just losing the one position, but at the end of the day they still crossed that line first, and I think mentally that's what they have to kind of hold on to and focus on to. And let's face it as well, once they got past that 42, they were not getting caught. It wasn't like they were having to fend off. They were comfortably out in front.
Yeah, it's like I say, I can see where both sides of that incident, we were kind of speaking, and I said at the time, I wasn't. I felt that Yaroslav Hosing might have come from a bit far back. For me, it's kind of a racing thing, but I do get that. Technically speaking, it was Bykov's corner. As long as he's not defending egregiously and basically reactionary defending, dangerous defending, it's fair. And so that's why Race Control have kind of made that decision. And I see it from both sides. Bit sad. But like you say, this is hard racing. We're kind of expecting to see a couple of those instances, especially around brands where it is so hard to overtake, and you take whatever opportunity you can get.
And that is exactly it. If you gave him that chance to do that again, 99.999% that he would do exactly the same move again. I think we all would. If you get a chance to go for it, you're absolutely going to go for it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's really down to as simple as that. There was no malice in it from any of the drivers. It's just one of those things, unfortunately.
It's just hard racing, which sometimes I have heard, and I'm just like, don't like hearing it. But in that sense, to be fair, it was just hard racing, and I'm fine with it either way. By the way, we are just waiting for the grid to be set and to be ready for the second sprint race. 2 sprint races up this evening. Of course, we'll be splitting it or switching the top 10 around. And so we'll be able to see how things are done whilst things are going to get crazy is basically what I'm trying to get at. We'll be back in a couple of moments though to see how that's going to unfold, because let's be honest, if race 1 was pretty exciting, race 2 will be just as much. We'll be back after this. Wow, getting things ready for a second sprint race. This time the top 10 get reversed and the pit stop slightly changes. We'll be still running the 10-minute window in the middle of the race, but this time no tyres, no fuel changes at all. They've got to start and finish on what they're on right now. Robbie Stableford's going to be starting from the reverse grid pole alongside Valentin Barriere in the Jardiere community car with keep your eye on Christopher and Sasha Glatter. They were rising up the order in the first race, look to do the same thing again from third position, but of course Mikhail Stsenko alongside the 449 Yazheat Pirelli car. The 77, this was a car that did a lot of progress in the previous race. Prime E-Racing, Felix Arndt starting that one, and then of course the Grip Hacks engineering car, Gobby behind the wheel, finished with Jonas Sutherland in the previous race, putting on fantastic pressure to Igor Ogrodnikov, the 41 that'll be starting from 7th position with Avalanche behind the wheel. Diamond Cormac back in the number 8, and then of course George Boothby, demoted in one race, promoted in the other, will start this one from 9th position, of course, after finishing 2nd in the previous race with Novikov in 10th. The rest of the grid will run through. Killian Ryan Meenan, I will just point out, as one to keep an eye on. Said before about his race starts, now starting this one from 12th after starting from the back of the top 20 in the previous race. That is a car to keep an eye on, David.
It really, really is. And again, with this reverse top 10, there's so many different variables now being thrown into the mix as well. For me, I really, really cannot see past the likes of Mikhail Stsenko and Abalad. But again, it's all about that first lap. We saw how much chaos there was, Lewis. There's no reason to doubt that we're not going to get anything other than that again. I look for some big movers. I think, let's see, Jonas van Druyten, I think could make some big moves up on that first couple of laps. So he's down there in 18th position in the 977. Yeah, it's just as much in race 1 where we're like, we don't have a clue what's going to happen here. I think equally so in race 2.
Yeah, there's a few cars down this way. That 111 that Florian Becker is behind the wheel, of course, received a drive-through penalty. Same with the 919. Those two were a lot higher up in the previous race. You had the number 70 there, that Jonathan Riley. That was a car that nearly qualified inside the top 10. The Volante Atatec car that starts down there. And of course, retirements from the previous race, those that are starting a bit further down, the 777 Sim Racing Masterclass. That one started from the front row in the previous race, will have to start further back. And then, of course, Eamon Murphy starting for the final position of the grid. James Baldwin, we've not even seen out in action this afternoon. Whether we'll see him out in this race, that is going to be a bit of a risky spot to start from. Although I have always said, if I'm going to start from positions in a race, I either want to start from the very front or the very back. Because starting in that mid-pack, especially around circuits like this, that is the danger zone.
It really, really is. Just to clarify for some of the questions coming in on YouTube chat to Rookie, it is a reverse top 10 from the race result. So that means that Jardier, who did cross the line first, ends up going down to 2nd, so they start 9th place on the grid in that 75. It's George Boothby behind the wheel there. One other person I criminally overlooked for the win here is this BMW G2 Esports leading the field round. Charlie Crossland in it just now. I like that now because we saw Robbie Stapleford in the car at the beginning of race 1. I think Robbie would be better in the final stint because Charlie can fight, and Robbie has definitely got a lot of pace.
Don't worry, I'm not going to be asking for your prediction in this race because there's too many that we could be looking at. Whether it's those that won the previous race rising their way back up, we'll just have to wait and see. It is a good car, this 62. The thing is about getting the race start done and underway quickly and cleanly, which is easier said than done. That car behind, to be perfectly honest, did impress me quite a lot in the previous race and went toe-to-toe with this number 62 BMW G2 esports car a fair few times. Number 44, of course, being the Jardier Community car. But then you've got to look at the fourth place, Yaz Heat. To be fair, I could list off half this grid and be like, yeah, there's a potential race winner. But either way, the Yaz Heat Pirelli car that sat down there, the 449 Stetsenko and Malinovsky. Those two are fantastic drivers. Did say before, of course, Malinovsky, series champion of this in the legendary Random Pasta Bowl. Great team name. But there's strength up and down the order, and there always will be in a grid like this.
There really, really will be. Just quickly, it's great to see that the Jardier fan club has decided to pop in for a little bit. Cried about the penalty. It is what it is, unfortunately, guys. Enjoy the race, and we get ready to go green again for race number 2.
Yeah, Race Control have had their say in race 1. Let's see what our drivers can do. The Jardier Community team will start from the front row of the grid alongside BMW G2 Esports, but keep your eye on the row behind as well. Racework.com and Yaz Heat Pirelli start 3rd and 4th. Sasha Glatter behind the wheel, and we know how fantastically fast he can be when the day comes. Charlie Crossland then gets things underway for the second race here at Brands Hatch in the Coach Dave Sprint Series, and look at that from Sasha Glatter, straight to the inside and up in the second position, potentially might well be able to clear the Jardier Community team down into Druids, might well just do it, but unfortunately for him, that Bentley has the drag off of the corner and has the inside coming down into Graham Hill. It's Primey Racing going side by side. Sasha Glatter's off the road though on the right side and rejoins right into the car. Oh my goodness me, we'd have to wait and see. That was right at the Primey Racing, right into the Griphags car. We'll have to take a look to see what happened to Sasha Glatter there. Might have just kept the foot in too much. And I know you, David Christie, do love a good rejoin like that, but whew.
Well, that got spicy, didn't it? Really, really quickly. And good spot on that, Lewis, because I didn't even see that.
Oh, and he's gone around again.
Oh, no. And again, back on the track.
Oh, Sash, that again, commentator's curse. I was speaking highly of Sasha Glatter right there. That is a 0 out of 10 lap run 1 from 3rd position all the way down to 33rd position, and with an awful lot of damage on that Racework car. That was terrible. We need to get replays of that one and stack them up, because there'll be so much to pick apart in all of that. Either way, it is the 62 leading over the line on the very first lap. Mikhail Bykov up into 6th position, dodging all of the chaos and drama. Fantastic. We did hear that Yaroslav Honzik had dodged it nicely as well. But Bykov going from 10th position up to 6th. What a lap 1 from our race winners of race number 1.
Alright, so I'm going to be honest, when I said about lap 1 being chaos and slightly unpredictable, I didn't even think that was going to happen. That was just absolutely barmy. But again, it's all about these next 5 minutes here, Lewis. The drivers have to now just settle down, keep themselves cool, calm, composed and collected. And again, you have to think about these tyres, because they cannot swap them when they go to pit lane. So despite how tempting it is to just put the foot down and get all those places up, they have to think about taking it easy and just being nice and gentle on those cars to make sure the second driver has absolutely everything at his disposal.
Well, this is the first time, by the way, that we're seeing James Baldwin hit the racetrack this evening after the car being retired in the opening stage of the day. Already up plus 12 into 21st position. Fantastic start to the race from James Baldwin. There he is, now on the rear end of Jonas Savalainen, who I was speaking of quite highly. That car obviously involved in the turn 3 calamity, shall we say. Might well be able to pick his way past fairly soon, especially if that car has a bit of damage on it. And to be fair for Baldwin, it's critical that he makes moves fast, quick and clean. Don't waste time trying to get past everyone. This should be a nice little move though on Savalainen on the run down into turn 1.
Yeah, made it look so simple and straightforward, and we realised that from reality it's anything but. And still trying to go around the outside. There goes the 49 of Savalainen. We cut back to Andrea Capoccia then trying to hunt down Tinko van der Velde. They're almost going to be side by side going into the corner. The Williams eSports car struggling a little bit. It looked like a tiny little brush of contact there, and I get the feeling that we're away to play movie time, because it's going to be all of those replays on that second place McLaren. This is where it all went wrong then. Through into Druids, Lewis, and just coming down here, talk us through this.
Let's take a deep breath and focus on the orange car of Sasha Glatter. So runs in fairly deep, just goes up onto the grass, and as sort of trying to rejoin slightly, the Prime E-Racing car was already off by himself. I don't know how I'd read into that one. They were both off the race circuit. Kind of how we see instance at COTA in IndyCar when they're all going all over the place at the penultimate corner. A little bit in that kind of vein of just like, oh, wouldn't even know where to begin.
Just looking here, does he get two wheels onto the grass on the left hand side here? That's my only thinking. He's very, very wide, or no, it's just damage.
It's just damage.
Yeah, he's just done. And again, the car just almost rejoins straight into the path of oncoming traffic. However, what I will say is, with the damage on that car, I don't think there was anything he could have done on that second
passenger.
spin.
Yeah, total passenger in the second one. And even with the rejoin, you could see very clearly it was not trying to it's just where the car was going was hard on the brakes to try and stop it from going back onto the race line. So the second one, fair enough. The first one, I honestly don't know where I would be apportioning blame. That's, again, race control are going to be very busy on that one. It is a penalty, we are being told, straight away. Drive-through penalty, a penalty for the unsafe rejoin towards Sasha Glatter. To be fair, the car was there. It's his control and his judgment which brings him back onto the racetrack, so I don't disagree on that one. That is a big penalty, and half the allowance of the licence points gone. Look at that move, though. A bit of a switch between these two SimGrid.Pro cars.
Yeah, there's definitely there's not going to be any sort of wild moves back from Igor Ogorodnikov there, but it was a mistake actually from the 41 that ended up letting that 42 through. So the two SimGrid.Pro by Vides machines, and Mikhail Baikov just gets the upper hand there, and we see all hell breaking loose as Jaroslav Honzik up the inside there, and takes yet another position.
Castorino, though, do you see how sideways? I think it was more a defensive move from Honzik, by the way, and Castorino trying to find a way past. Nearly went for a big spin in the definitely not a DV1 Triton Clash car. I mean, to be fair, I'd clap that save. That was a good save and quick hands from Amado Castorino. Brilliant stuff to even still be in the race.
I think that's a very fair point, but look at what it's cost him. He's now very vulnerable to the likes of Artur Sanaki behind him in that number 7 McLaren. But what a brilliant little train we've got going on here. 6 cars between what's that 5th position all the way down to 10th, maybe 4th position as well. And Tinko van der Velde, I thought was going to be very vulnerable at the start of this race. He's doing brilliantly to stay there in 6th position. And I was thinking that's a 6-car train there, but actually, if we have a look there, that is of course the number 91 of Sasha Glatter that is right in the mix there, and I'd be feeling a little bit awkward actually after the way that race has been going for them.
Yeah, obviously lap down and all this, but still trying to keep going. There was the battle behind, which was going to jump to Kapocci, had defended from Parker. Parker now under an awful lot of pressure from Jaroslav Honzik, and Castorino right back into the mix. Got Carbon Simsport to deal with, got Bischoff, who we know loves to try a move at basically every corner around Brands Hatch at the moment. So the idea might be open for the 977 to find a way past the 7, the 129, and somehow find a way up into the race lead. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, I've got to be honest. I mean, the thing is as well is that how often do we have a race where we've got loads that we know is going to happen, and yet 8 minutes in, I've got no idea what is going on right now. That track map is so congested, and again, it comes down to these 5-10 minutes. The drivers just needs to calm it down, just to dial down that tempo a little bit. Gaze around at what's going on. So we see another penalty, 10 seconds for Kamenev in the 81 SMP Racing Esports machine for contact with the 34, and that is TF Racing Souvlaki of Janis Jordakis and Konstantinos Kontogiannis.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, over the first bit of that race, I am not surprised we had our fair share of bumps and bangs. You can see we've got, looking at the track map, which is why it's always good to have up, we can see we've really got 2 trains. You've got your leaders on it. To be fair, the top 2 are quite clear, although I will say Charlie Crossan's coming under a bit of pressure at the moment by Malinovsky, who's closed in. We've got this train that we're focused on here, the lead train, you could classify it as, and then you've got the rear train, the ones battling it down, basically for every position up to 17. There is one car between those two trains. Never guess who it is. It is, of course, James Baldwin, as we just see a little bit of three-wide action, a little bit of bumping and banging, Bentley coming through, and the Volante car of Jonathan Riley's the one that's losing out.
Oofed. That was a little bit harum scarum. As we see 3 wide, are you kidding me? What a move! And almost going 4 wide. There is proper contact going on here. It's safe to say I don't think these are going to be giving Christmas cards out to each other at the end of the year.
Yeah, this is one of those ones where you just kind of, yep, this is going to end in tears at any moment. Lintos, though, defending just a little bit, trying to keep the Ren Valton car behind. Look at that as the Sim Racing Masterclass Mooney gets past Behrman just behind all of that. Absolutely frantic. And this isn't even right up there. This is down the order, you know, outside of, to be fair, in the bottom third of the entire race, yet you'd still think that they are battling for the race victory right now. That is how hard they are fighting. Fantastic to see. We do love our battles up and down the order, but speaking of ones that are fairly far up the grid, just 0.2 of a second now separates our top two. The Yazheat Pirelli car is right there as we refocus on Malinovsky, right on the rear end of Charlie Crossland.
Yeah, we've got another penalty for Prime Racing this time. Felix Arndt getting a 5-second penalty for causing a collision with a 34. That is again the Souvlaki TF Racing machine, so they have been in the wars just now, but you're spot on when you say this. Maciej Malinowski really has been stalking that BMW G2 Esports, but also look at how much of a gap the two of them have opened up over the rest of the field. That's nearly 3 seconds, and yeah, he's looking very good. But look, we know Maciej, we've seen him many times. This is all he does. He just waits for his opportunity. If he feels he's significantly faster, he'll make a move, but he will put so much pressure on, he makes the car in front make that mistake for him.
But then, like I say, you've got to judge it. Malinovsky will be looking, being like, keeping his eye on the gap to the car behind, to the Joliet community car, and thinking, right, okay, is that gap closing quickly, or are we both keeping this at a decent rate? As Sasha Glatter's getting out of the way of the cars coming through, Tigger van der Velde, Kapotja, etc., just sort of jumping out of the way of the trains, which is easier said than done. But if you're Malinovsky, keeping your eye on the gap behind, making sure it's not coming down too much, playing the long game in a race like this. Normally in a sprint race we wouldn't be talking about the long game and stuff, but it is critical in races like this, especially in race number 2. This will be a critical thing over the entire evening as we run through the 5 rounds of this season, because race 2 of each evening, the even numbered rounds of all races of the season, there's no tyre changes. You finish the race on the tyres you start, and that is not easy. And you know, there's no refueling and stuff. Playing the long game in races like this is absolutely critical if you want to win. So right now for Malinovsky, is there a need to go for the lead right now? Not really.
No, I don't think there is. The other thing though is, remember that the cars wear their tyres at different rates, so I find that the Merc is much heavier on its tyres than the likes of the BMW. Now that is on some very old experience. That might have changed massively in the 1.8 update. Hang on, how on earth is Baldwin up into 16th place? He was last, Lewis. What is... can we pull that car into pit lane and get a check for like an Exocet missile or something on it?
He, like I said, he was in when we had those 2 trains. He was the car in between, and as the train's stacking itself up a little bit, he's going, "Oh, I'll take that." Saw how easily he picked up positions within the train he was in. We caught a couple of moves that he made. Just knows what he's doing. By the way, I think Willem van Oomen got past Kamenev down into Druids, but of course Kamenev with a 10-second time penalty anyway to be served in the pit stop. The 2 cars ahead of Baldwin are the 2 cars with penalties. Of course, a 5-second one to the Prime E-Racing car, and Kamenev in the number 81 SMP Racing Esports car also has a penalty, this one being 10 seconds. Baldwin doesn't care about that. He cares about position. He's not waiting until the pit stops to get past. You know, not a fan of that. Look at the pressure he's put on. Prime E Racing. There's another one ticked off. Top 15, here we come.
That's unbelievable. It really is. And do you know what's worse is the fact that he just makes it look so easy.
So easy.
Absolutely effortless right now. 45 minutes to go. There is no doubt that he is going to be in the top 5 for the finish on this pace. But it all comes back down now to Maciej Malinowski, who again in the back of Charlie Crossland. And there's a lot of pressure for the BMW G2 Esports.
Not a quick lap there from Charlie Crossland, and that will be bringing the Jardier community car back into it. So this is where Malinowski might be feeling the pressure just a little bit and thinking, right, I need to find a way past. I need to get up into the lead of the race if we want to win. Oh my goodness me. Penalties. So you wanted to know how a car gets from the rear of the grid up inside the top 15 in the early stages. Well, I'm sure one of those moves wasn't so great. A 5-second time penalty going the way of James Baldwin, who has got up now into 14th position after clearing Kamenev.
Yeah, that's going to be on Janis Shardakis, the 34, who is now all the way down in 22nd place. So I would imagine that those two are thoroughly related. We've got cars moving left, right and centre. I believe that was Bischoff and Jan-Phil van Ommen who were duking out as well as Castellano. And if I look at that, that is almost 10 cars nose to tip. And while we say that we get excited about cars being close in some real intense action, I mean, we just love it when we see them just as close as that.
I'm going to point out one thing, by the way, with those 3 penalties of those cars in the middle. Who were they against? And they were all against the 34.
I mean, penalties is the only way that you can try and stop James Baldwin cutting through the field. And, you know, I'm wondering if Shardakis' one was like the equivalent of a dive in football. You know, just try to do something to try and stop that 28 getting through. I
do feel like the thing is, when you're in a car like the 34, right, in this, you know, like I said, all 3 of those penalties have been against those cars where the 34 has been the victim. You're sat there in a race, and then it just one incident happens, then another one, and you're literally sat there like, oh great, anyone else? Does anyone else want my car? Anyone else? Go for it right now. And you start getting like really irate, and then you make mistakes and stuff. Been there, done that. Here comes Malinowski straight down the inside. Defended nicely by Crossland. Might run in a little bit too deep. And look at that gap. It is being detonated to the double Bentley action directly behind. 1.7 seconds. Malinowski started to feel the pressure now. That's why he's getting a bit desperate.
It certainly is. Right, let's have a look here then. This is Glatter again, and oh no, I get such a bad feeling about this. Onto the grass. Oh, that is brutal to watch.
Obviously just trying to get out of the way, but then does get squeezed off by the Clash car. Whether you could say maybe Sasha Glatter needed to lift out of that one, being a lap down and such, and not really being a part of the battle. I mean, for me, he's still a car on the racetrack, but yeah. I'm not sure on that. Well, like I say, I think Sasha Glatter probably should have just played his cards a little bit longer game in that one and back out, especially when you're a lap down. Either way, it's happened now as Behrman's going for a little bit of a move on the 111 of Lindhorst. These two have battled it out a couple of times already today, and keep your eye on the, I think it's the Carbon car that was directly behind that one, of course, being Lukacek, the Carbon Blue. I was panicking because it was the 25, and obviously the Carbon has the number 7 as well, so hang on. But no, it's just Lukacek behind.
What I love is the 111 Porsche of Florian Becker and Richard Lindhorst. Now, I think here at SimGrid, they have been one of the most consistent teams in terms of driving the same car for so long. Every time I see them, they're always in that Porsche, and I don't know, there's something about me that just kind of likes that, to think that that's their favourite car, and that you'll always see them in that iconic pink livery in a Porsche.
Well, it gets to the point where when you kind of see a name, and then it's like, hang on, he's in a Ferrari. You kind of think, wait, were they always in a Ferrari? Is that me going? But no, because you associate, you see name. Don't even have to be like, what car are they in? Oh, right, they're in a Porsche. This does happen across sim racing. You know, typically when you see any of the Coanda guys, they're almost always in a Porsche. G2 Esports, obviously with the partnership with BMW, they're always in a BMW. As well, you don't really see, as when I was trying to get used to seeing them in like Mercs or something like that, in other championships. I'm thinking, hang on, it's really hard to get used to this because it's something's just not right, and it's triggering that part of your brain that just recognises stuff instantly, and you're just like, there's something not right here. But yeah, I like the consistency. I like sticking to the same car rather than jumping from car to car to car. James Baldwin's another one. We almost always see him racing in a McLaren.
Yeah, and talking of which, 13th position already. He is just charging his way through the field right now. James Parker, though, we're currently having a look at just now in the Aston Martin behind Andrea Capoccia and just ahead of Jaroslav Honzik, aka Jardier. 40 minutes left to go, and again, like you were saying there, oh my goodness me, that was a huge moment from Andrea Capoccia. Gets back on, but that could have been disaster.
Yeah, Capoccia just sort of rejoining ahead of Jaroslav Honzik. Now, Capoccia, from memory, was originally, or last year, part of Yaz Heat. And so now driving for what I believe is R8G in this. Might be a little bit of a twist of fate there, just jumping in front of your old teammates. There's another position, by the way, for James Baldwin to pick up as he gets past Willem van Oomen, and of course the number 7 of Carbon Sim Sport, receiving a little bit of contact through all of that, but either way, up into 12th spot. I'm going to ask you a question when it comes to sim racing liveries for Lotto livery, yay or nay?
This one just now?
Yeah.
Maybe. I like the simplicity because it's bold, and I love that simple style. For me, it would have been nicer if it was just like, I don't know if it's my screen or if it was like plain white, pure white and black. I think that would have worked really well.
Yeah, it's more of like a grey.
It's away.
I like the sponsorship. Not so much of a fan of the livery. By the way, Malinovsky there losing a position to Bykov. Bykov up into second now. This 42 car. Now, I was going to be a little bit critical of Bykov in the previous race. I was going to be like, nah, he didn't do as good a job in comparison to Novikov. That cannot be said in this race, not even remotely. From 10th place up into second. Also, there was clearly an incident that we haven't caught between Malinovsky and Crossland, who are now running 3rd and 6th. So not sure what has happened between the Yaz Heat Pirelli car and the BMW G2 Esports car. But either way, Bykov, 2nd position. The Jarlier Community car, those leading.
There you go. Okay. So we need to find out what has happened to our race leader. Then you're gonna have to feel that was contact between the two of them. We've got another penalty coming in between the 71 and the 70. Let's actually have a quick look here. So let's. He's just gone wide, is he? So. Oh no. Yeah, that's. I'm not even going to say what that was, but. I mean, when we see contact, and you see sometimes drivers driving into each other. For me, I mean, that is just clumsy. That's all it is. It's not. There's no malice behind it. It's just you're not expecting the car in front to slow down as much, or you're expecting them to be a little bit more on the throttle. And the fact this replay is still going makes me worried that there's a secondary incident for that Mercedes.
Nah, it's just Bykov getting up into second position and passing Malinovsky. So with those kind of things, if it's in the middle of the train, I'm kind of like, look, concertina effect, accordion effect, whatever you want to call it, you're all backing up into each other, it happens. When you're just 2 cars by yourselves, that kind of contact, not really acceptable. I think Malinovsky might be paying some form of penalty in that one. Crossan, yes, did come out wide, but it is typical with Druids. The corner does. Some people tend to find one nice line through, but as we see Tinker van der Velde there, you go for the first apex, you come around, you diamond off the corner, and you go for the second apex. There's a couple of different lines that work in Druids, and Crossan was a little bit further off and then came back on, which is perfectly fine. And then was tapped directly on the rear. There was no overlap there from Malinovsky, so I'm going to assume that might well be a penalty dished out to the 449 in the fair near future, although I don't want to speak on behalf of the stewards, who, as you were saying, did dish out a penalty to the number 70. That one being, of course, the Volante car. That was against the 71, the Red Bolton Esports Orange.
Now, from personal experience with Charlie Crossan, this is where I get really worried. Now, thankfully, the pit stop window is going to be very, very soon. But again, from personal experience, when Charlie Crossan feels aggrieved, the temper starts to flare out. Just in the same way that I was talking about with Igor Ogorodnikov, it's exactly the same way with that, and maybe a little bit more so. Whether or not we'll see it, I don't know. Maybe it'll be perfectly calm, but do not be surprised if we see Charlie getting a little bit more aggressive when he's defending positions or attacking just now. Again, it just seems to go hand in hand, as I'm pretty sure I saw James Parker trying to make a move.
Got it. And James Parker did indeed get it, and Insti on the defence into Druids, just trying to keep Charlie Crossing at bay. I mean, to be fair, wasn't super aggressive on the defence there, as Bischoff getting Costarino straight down the inside. A little bit of a brush between them, but the Porsche's going to hold on from the Bentley. And here comes James Baldwin going straight for the inside to get down the inside of Castorino. Is the door open? Way deep goes the Bentley. Castorino misjudging that corner, nearly cleared Bischoff off the road, which I'm pretty sure Baldwin was thinking, no, go on, mate, give it some. But no, all is well and good. Baldwin surely has to stay in the car to the end of the pit window, because he is flying. Now, that's no disrespect to Eamon Murphy, who we know will be just as fast, but still, confidence is there.
Oh, now Masik Malinowski has got past, let's have a look here, ignore me. I was obviously completely looking at a different race for the past 10 minutes or so, but it's actually Bykov right onto the back of the 44 there of Voitna. So Jardia Community in the lead of this race, and Jaroslav Honzing almost missing at wiping out Andrea Kapoccia and Charlie Crossland, who decide to go into the pits. That was a scary moment.
Yeah, Tinko van der Velde straight at the pit lane as well, and this is brilliant for James Baldwin, because look at the clean air that is directly ahead, as Jaroslav Honzik's a good second ahead of James Baldwin, so this could be fantastic. The the pit window though, wide open, and we saw most of the cars in the early stages of race one take it. It was really within sort of like the first half of that pit window where 2/3, 3/4 of the grid had already come straight in. It was only the select few that stayed out. Kind of get the feeling we might well see a copy and paste of that.
It could be. It seemed to work very well, just staying out, getting a bit of clean air and just popping the laps in. You get some good time for yourself here, especially given that you can't take fuel or tyres in this pit stop. So really all it is for is a driver change. So if you're not going in for anything, stay out, keep the tyres hot, and keep the lap times coming.
Well, it is the Jardia Community car that's leading. Bykov right in the rear end, looking for a second consecutive race win to open the Coach Dave Super Sprint Series. No way to pass right now. Not necessarily sure if the pass is being looked at the moment by Bykov. It's Bentley versus Bentley. Now, typically when we've seen battles in this series so far, it's been different manufacturers versus different manufacturers, but it's Bentley, Merc at the moment at the front of our grid, and they are all separated, to be perfectly honest, by about a second.
It's so tight right now, honestly it is, and you get the feeling that Masik is maybe just biding his times a little bit here, because he's right there with the Bentleys, but he's also not want to get caught in any further incidents right now. But Igor Ogorodnikov, if I'm honest with you, in the pound seats right now, yet again for the second race in a row, we are poised, waiting to see if we get a SimWare.Pro 2 cars on the podium, and they're really doing everything that they possibly can. What it makes me question, what it makes me ask, Lewis, is how good is that SimWare.Pro setup behind the scenes, because they've got these cars dialed in, they've got the absolute right drivers behind the wheel. It is very impressive team wise.
I mean, I was a little bit harsh in the previous race, and I'm going to continue on that trend. I don't think Igor Ogorodnikov's been quite on the pace that we'd expect as the Jardia Community car dives into the pit lane. Oh, was that wide? See, I was just saying it then. I think Ogorodnikov might have been a little bit wide at the final corner before diving down to the pit lane. Here goes Malinowski, and Bykov straight off into the barrier. Oh, there's more drama for the SimWare.Pro by Vides car down into turn one, and it's against another Yaz Heat car. How do we read that one?
All I'm going to say is Malinowski is going to need some protection at the end of the night, because that is That looked fairly clean cut to me. I'll have a look at the replay, maybe change my mind on that, but yeah, my mind is fairly confident of what just unfolded there, and I think it's what you saw as well there, Lewis.
Yep.
I think it's just a coincidence that it's another Yaz Heat car, but this certainly doesn't look good, and yeah, the race control are going to be very keen to have a look at that one.
Just remember, the 449 received its final warning in the previous race. Let's see what happens. It dives to the inside. Oh!
Actually, that's completely different from what I thought I saw.
Yeah, because I think, so the angle we had, it looked like contact. I kind of think Bykov might have lost it.
It would add up with that, because if the car's unstable under braking and it overcorrects it, it's a bit strange. Again, we might have to look at some different angles for that, and certainly race control will be looking for that one. Just a very strange incident. Let's have a look again then, potentially from a different angle. So again, it's that back right of the car that we're watching for here. Sent it up the inside. Oh yeah, see that for me, it does look like netcode, but it looks like that car is way too close to just let it off.
Yeah, I don't know how I'd read that one. That one is tight. That one it's a lot tighter than I thought. Like I said, first angle looked like it was definitely on Malinovsky. Second angle, definitely not. Looked like Bykov lost it. Third angle, and we're 50-50. So we've seen it from all three sides. It's like, I have no idea. I'm glad I'm not in race control. Let's see how hard Yaroslav Honzik's going to fight James Baldwin on the battle for third position. Boy, we are not short of drama here at the season opener at Brands Hatch, the Coach Dave Super Sprint. Been fantastic on our run through, our little romp in West Kingsdown in Kent. It's always a track that delivers.
It really is. Can you say that line again though about James Baldwin?
I don't know what I said.
About fighting for third. Can we just make that in? Third position, that is absurd. Yes, there's pit stops to go on it, but yeah, I mean, whoa, what a drive. But I tell you what, he's met his match with Jardier right now. Jardier holding on with everything that he possibly can. I think this might be another replay then from on board with the Bentley. Let's have a look here.
See if anything's uncharacteristic in the movement of the car.
I think he loses it. I think you're spot on with your initial judgment there on that second angle.
He loses it. It kind of feels that he's losing it on the brakes.
Yeah, because that the steering wheel, if it was a punt, if it was a hit, you'd see the steering wheel snap. But the fact is, it looked like lift-off oversteer, and the car started to spin. He tried to correct it, and it ends off going off into the barrier.
And it's not uncommon at Paddock Hill. It is really not uncommon for that style of incident. I mean, in practice, how many times have we had it where you're driving around by yourself in practice and that incident happens? So in that sense, it kind of happens. Either way, Malinovsky has received a 15-second penalty. It is not for that incident. It is for the incident with the 62 that we kind of saw. That one was expected. That one at Druid's corner against Charlie Cross, and of course Robbie Stableford jumped in behind the 62. That one was pretty expected. Now, when we're talking of license points and being used up and stuff, Malinovsky, or this car, the 449, it was on its final warning in the previous race, if memory serves. Now it's got a penalty there of 15 seconds. Bearing in mind that we've spoken about the license points and how they get applied, that is one license point. If they get a second license point, whether you kind of how you see the turn one thing, maybe race control feel it is a penalty, then they do give it a license point. I'm not necessarily sure they will, but that's up to them. A lot of these teams are running out of license points already, to the point where when they pick up another penalty, they're going to be getting a penalty for the next round as well. They've got to be careful. We've only had one round of this so far.
I wasn't expecting to be in this position already, I'll be honest with you, Lewis, and we're almost going to have a slide rule and an abacus to work out exactly how many penalty points that these drivers and more importantly these teams have going into this championship. But after the pit stops are done and dusted, I think Maciej Malinowski still has to pit right now as it stands, but pace-wise, he's definitely not out in front for me. I think that has to go with the likes of Jardier, who's still doing 1:23.5s. But 25 minutes left to go, and this race is genuinely still at the point where we just don't have a clue who's going to be in the top 5 with 5 minutes to go.
Never used an abacus. Never. We do have someone that can use, well, clearly, obviously, must do, in the form of Michael Hamlet, who's got to be on it with everything, passing us all sorts of information and doing all of the mathematic calculations behind the scenes as to who's got what, as I'm sure will be fed certainly over the next round. Our final lap, by the way, for the pit window sequence to be completed for a lot of these teams. You can see it's very, very green. There's only the select few out at the moment yet to complete their pit lane sequence, and it's Dyer McCormack that is the leader of the group that have pitted as our final ones jump into the lane.
Oh, and that was a huge moment there. Was that Alexander Herbigno? No, it wasn't actually. That was one of the cars behind. That might have been Darren King. That had a huge wobble.
The white, black and red. I'm pretty sure it was.
Goodness me. Fair play that he managed to hold on, but again, just shows how much these drivers are having to be on edge, given that they're 35 minutes into a 60-minute race and they're still on the edge of things going very, very wrong very, very quickly as the pit stops come through. And it's shown me that Killian Ryan Meenan in that 1-2-3 is in the lead.
Yeah, I think we're still. Oh, no. I was going to say we're still in the sequence, but no, Killian Ryan Meenan, the car with James Parker. Just need to clarify if that is the case. Obviously, we're still getting a bit of movement.
It's moved down now, yeah. So it's probably the timing screen just sorted itself out.
That's a shame. That would have been a great story.
It certainly would. I'm seeing Robbie Stapleford though into the car, and he's still just down in 6th place. Do not look past him for getting a podium here. He is a very, very fast driver.
Yeah, we're seeing Hetich here making a couple of mistakes. I was just trying to get past the Grip Hacks engineering car of Gobby. So the 71 has got another time penalty, the 71 being the Red Welton Esports orange car. That 10-second time penalty going to Felix Rupert, and that's a second penalty. Now, what that means is the next penalty that goes his way all season, and that's a penalty for the next round. Already, one driver's got that.
Yeah, that is some brutal stuff right there. And the thing, again, it shows how brilliant this penalty system is, Lewis. The fact that drivers are having to think on this, and it's only race 1, and they've already used up a good allocation of those points. 8 races still to go. And you're literally on the edge. That is cutting it fine to the absolute extreme.
I did a season where we had 18 races in touring cars, and the license system was 10 license points, and for each incident you'd get 1 license point. Now, I said that was ridiculous. That is insane that you can have 10 incidents over a season, and other people were complaining that it was too harsh. And I was like, what do you mean it's too harsh? Well, it's touring car racing, isn't it? You're like, no, it's still racing. Like, 10 is way too many. I like the fact that this is harsh, that we are being harsh, because it's encouraging people to be clean. It's not. I refuse this whole sentimentality that we have within sim racing and motorsport, that is the harsh penalties mean we don't get good racing because people aren't brave enough to go for a move. And I'm like, yeah, but if they're not brave enough, if they can't go for that move, then they shouldn't be going for it anyway. Yeah, if you're not in control of your vehicle enough to throw it down the inside, then don't throw it down the inside, penalty or not. And so, for me, it doesn't make the racing worse because people are less encouraged to go for it. It makes the racing better because people are more mature and more understanding of the limitations of their car. The yellow flag that came out there, I'm pretty sure, was for the 49, which is the Grip Hacks engineering car of Gobby, which was running in that 13th spot. I think that's one that's had issues. It's a bit of a shame. They didn't have a great start to this race. They're certainly not having a great end to it either.
Yeah, it's been one to forget, really, as we see Eamon Murphy trying to hold on to that position, or rather trying to get past David Purcell there, who doesn't have a particularly good exit out of that corner. And again, that's just done so simple for Eamon Murphy. He's going to try and get the cut back, is David Purcell. A little bit of contact there, and you can see the frustration kicking in. Jonas van Druyten there with a cheeky little flash of lights there, saw what happened, thought, right, I'll try and take some of this as well. But for me, the story of this just now, right now, if I'm not mistaken, Williams Esports, a car that we tipped to do very well in race 1, P1 right now, 20 minutes left to go, 1.6 seconds ahead. Darren McCormack very, very fast driver, this is looking very, very good. 42, I'm just hearing, has got a drive-through for track limits, and the 42 is away down in 26th place, so that is Alexander Novikov.
Yeah, Novikov behind the wheel now. Bykov, I mean, the issues that car's had. We were chatting up about, obviously, race winner in race number 1. Certainly not getting that in race 2, but they were very, very close to getting there. I mean, track limits around here is quite easy, as there goes the move down the inside from Shermatinsky. What a move that was on Contagianis. Absolutely sent it into the final corner to make his move on the TF Racing car. Absolutely superb. Speaking of great racing, as Sim Racing Masterclass of Zahir Issa just trying to get past the 521 car, which ends up being the Wheelspin eSports car that struggled to get to grips completely with this race circuit. It's a bit of a shame for the 777 being that low. Track limits, though, quite easy around here. Running wide at Graham Hill, you pick them up through the race. They're so easy to pick up. By the way, speaking of cars that's done well through the pit lane sequence, yes, Di McCormack, fair enough. Killian Ryan Meenan, regardless of not leading, still running in third. Great stuff for the black and pink car. Every time I'm seeing it, I'm still seeing Side Max Motorworks, which doesn't really exist anymore. But George Boothby taken over from Jaroslav Honzik, P4. Very nice.
He's done very, very well. I'm just also looking further down the list here, and for me, I mean, the fact that Jaroslav is down there again and handing that car back over to George, they fought so hard to get that car up into that fourth position, yeah. and yet you wouldn't put it off them getting that extra position, potentially getting back on the podium. Abalade, though, as well, again in that 41 car, I'm gutted for the 42, because the pair of them, we've been talking, very highly of the Simware.pro. It's just the way that it goes, but the 41 is just as much of a danger to Killian Ryan Meenan as George Boothby or Abalade.
Thing is, we're not seeing too many moves coming from the Mercs this evening. It's one thing that I'm noting. We've seen this with Yiga Rogorognikov on the rear end of a few cars, and to be fair, even Abalade's being in the same position in race 1, they do struggle to actually make moves. And yes, this can be down to taking the looks of the likes of James Baldwin, who was just cutting through the grid. Maybe more so driving rather than car, which I think is a pretty safe bet. But it does still seem like the Mercs a little bit hard to pass. So I'm almost thinking that Abalade there's got a little bit of a hill to climb to try and make that move stick. Here's Novakovsky, who did well in the first race, not so well in this race, which I think is a common theme, which is why I'm pretty sure if everything finishes the way it is, regardless of having race 1 taken away from them in victory sense, George Boothby and Jaroslav Honzik, I'm pretty sure, will be leading the championship by a fair margin after round 1.
I think it'd be very comfortable for them, and not just that. I mean, how much confidence and happiness did they come away from opening up the championship in such a strong fashion as well. They've really had their finger on the pulse in both of the races. We see Mikhail Novikowski's struggling to get that car stopped, trying to get onto the back of Nick Hubin there. But yeah, going back to Jardy and the team there, you expect that from Yassi. That's the sort of performances that they pull in time and time again. And oh my goodness me, that was a 34 there. TF Racing Souvlaki squad almost getting wiped out there from Mikhail Novikowski.
Yeah, Patrick Noj got through in that, and now Novikowski's getting to the outside on the run up the hill. Not sure if that was going to work. We've seen a couple of attempts of this one, and little bit of contact and a big slide there from Contagianis. I think Contagianis had an issue a couple of corners ago, or potentially on the exit of Graham Hill, and it's just building up now, and maybe the rear tyres are being overheated. We were saying before, tyres should be good for an hour, but you can burn them out, and once you pass the 40-minute mark, the tyres can be a little tricky to drive on.
And the hotter they get, the worse they get as well. It's like this deteriorating cycle that just goes on and on and on. So they have to keep an eye on that. They can sort of back off a little bit, and the tyres will eventually cool back down. They get a little bit more life into them. But when you're in the middle of a pack, there's no chance you can do that. Just also noticing our two cars at the front, Darren McCormack there and Valentin Barrier now, that's a handsome 4.8 second lead that they've got over the rest of the field just now. And quite honestly, I'm thinking now that Darren McCormack there in the Williams Esports machine, he's looking very happy up there in the front, 1.5 seconds ahead of Valentin Barrier. I think that he is looking in a good position for the final 15 minutes of this race.
Yeah, like you say, I think right now things are very good for our top two, but how quickly can that fall apart? And when you've got drivers like Killian Ryan Meaning, more so towards the names of George Boothby, when they get into some clean air, if George Boothby can get through 15 minutes, I honestly, hand on heart, I know how quick the top two are, would not rule them out for doing something very, very special in that position. So who knows? SMP Racing just behind Carbon Sim Sports here. Let's see if they might well make a move, but obviously they've got to keep their eye on the 31 McLaren of Gerardus directly behind, which certainly isn't an easy scenario. You've got Cerosi as well in this little train. Gobby's on the rear end of it in that Grip Hacks engineering car. You can just kind of see popping through in the rear end of the shot. The car just behind Gobby, of course, is the car that was piloted by Sasha Glatt, and now behind the wheel is Christopher. That one is out of it, just a lap down, leaving to it as Gerardus looks for a move.
Yeah, it's looking very, very cool, calm and collected. Also, just noticing there that the 777 car of Sim Racing Masterclass had launched itself into orbit on the track map. Apparently, obviously, that's what happens when the car disconnects. So they've pulled the car into the garage, and it looks like that is it done and dusted. And I'm hearing an absolute bombshell of a rumour that there could be a penalty for the leader. So Darren McCormack for Williams Esports getting a penalty for 5 seconds on the number 41 for causing a collision.
Is this going to become the theme of the season? Are we going to see this a fair few times where race winner in the previous race and 5 seconds was given to the race leader? Are we going to see that again in this race? 5 seconds going to Dyer McCormack. We are getting word in our ear, by the way, about the incident down in Paddock Hill. Of course, the one between Malinowski when he got down. The inside the Bentley, of course, of Bykov. The issue between the two of them. Race stewards have looked at him and been like, look, he loses it on the brakes, so they've classified it as it just not being basically nothing. It happened. No investigation necessary, even though technically there was an investigation of it to make sure that there was no investigation. So kind of a 50-50 in that sense, isn't it?
No investigation necessary after the investigation deemed that
exactly.
There was no investigation necessary. Excellent stuff. And this is exactly why you don't want to do race stewarding, because your life is investigating why you're doing investigations. But 30 minutes left to go in this race then. So we're hearing then that Darren McCormack then in Williams Esports getting that penalty, but it's not appearing beside their name just yet, so I wonder if they've appealed.
Oh, there we go.
Just as if by magic, as if I suddenly said, to be fair, that's only going to cost them the race win. And yes, it's frustrating to lose the race win, but in the championship terms, still second place, and that's still some good points.
That does mean that it would promote the 44. Of course, that incident that they had was between them and the other Merc that's up towards the top end, the Avalad's car that sat in 5th position. Here's Eamon Murphy, still not able to get past Patil in the Clash racing car. No pathway through. Still just going to say it's grey and black, and I was critical of them in the VCO Esports Racing World Cup of Logica. I like their black and blue cars. I want more of those. They look fantastic, but either way, Eamon Murphy to the outside running up the hill. This one hasn't worked into Hawthorns a few times. It's not going to work this time. The cutback might just be there for Eamon Murphy to get down the inside of the next corner. It's a little bit tight, and this can sometimes result in contact. just managing to get away with it there.
Whew, and breathe, I think, for both of those cars there. A little bit of dust kicked up from the car in front, I think, of David Purtill. But wow, that was, and sorry, that might have been Robbie Stapleford, excuse me. But David Purtill there, breathing a sigh of relief. He saw that McLaren going up the inside, and I think he would have saw what happened with the two McLarens on race 1 when they got side by side together. It's never a pretty moment, but to be fair, Eamon Murphy also did have full control of that car all the way through that corner. So again, yes, it's exciting to see, but I think it was maybe a little bit closer on the cameras than it actually was on the track. Talking about close, that battle for 3rd, 4th and 5th is raging on right now. 3 cars split by, what, 0.8 of a second here, Lewis. 10 minutes to go. It's now starting to get to go time here.
And Abelads has got past George Boothby recently, so that number 41 Simware.Pro car has got up. What's happened to George Boothby? He's not really close. Coming across. Oh, there's damage. There must be damage because George Boothby's coming into this. Look, there's George Boothby right there as we're trying to go through. Patil to the outside, opens the door for Eamon Murphy. George Boothby's just trying to get out of the way. Eamon Murphy's gone +1, gone +2. George Boothby is stuck in 2nd gear. A technical fault for the Yazheat Richard Mille car, and now Van Dreuten's coming through. Oh, this is tragic. We were giving them their plaudits for how well they'd done today, and I'm still not going to say it's commentator's curse, but that is absolutely tragic for George Boothby.
So it looks like that's his gear shifter, and oh no, he's not going to retire it, surely. I mean, you've only got 10 minutes left to go. You could have maybe, could you have brought it in and handed it over to the other driver, or... he's got it going again, so it's going to have cost him about maybe 30 seconds, but that's still potentially can finish in the top 15 here. Well, let's see what happens there. But my goodness me, that now means that this battle here has just exploded into life, because now David Purtill ahead of Eamon Murphy, Jonas van Druyten, Nick Hubin. So again, we've now got 4 cars within 0.8 of a second, within a second right now. Oh my goodness me, you wanted drama, Lewis. This is exactly it.
I was pretty sure that Eamon Murphy had got past David Purtill, but we were obviously focused on, and rightfully so, towards George Boothby and what was happening there. But Eamon Murphy wasn't able to take full advantage. He's back to the outside of Hawthorns, running down towards Westfield. Oh, straight around the outside. Finally, it worked. Never got the outside of Westfield, but look at this. The send back in from the Clash Racing car fires it all the way through as we head down into Dingledale and up towards Sheen's Curve. Eamon Murphy just trying to wrestle it. He's still on the outside. He's run wide. Now he's going to drop a couple of positions as Van Druyten comes through. Not quite the same for Nick Hoban in the R8G car. And now Senko's back in this as finally Eamon Murphy goes back to the outside.
What on earth just happened in that past lap there? Eamon Murphy looking like, you know, absolute big dog right there outside. Oh, no. George Boothby around again, and that is in traffic. That is in the middle of the road, that car. That is absolute disaster. And he's gone back to the garage there. And yeah, Lewis, I'm absolutely devastated for them.
That is heartbreaking, especially considering Mike Yao decided to pop it up just for less than a second, just to be like, boom, this is what's happened, boom, straight back to the action. That's rough. That is absolutely horrible for them. They didn't deserve that. I mean, such an odd issue. Don't know what happened in the instant that's thrown them out of the race, but regardless, it has done so, and so we'll have to wait and see. A car that was looking guaranteed to be our championship leader apparently had no force feedback after resetting as well, which does actually kind of make sense, which to drive around most circuits is difficult. Around here, this is not a corner, and Sheen's Curve is one of those ones, obviously well off pace, gets tapped by the 81. That's rough.
Yeah. That's and again, there's nothing you can do if you're the 81 as well, because you've got a car that's much slower than you, and it's on the racing line. It's like it is what it is, devastating. But again, they can still leave their head held high. They'll come back next time. They've won the race, or they came second rather in the race here tonight. It's been an okay outing for them. It could have been much worse.
like you say, there are positives. I think that's the thing, is that you're leaving the event with positives. You're leaving the event with focus as we eye up the next round at Zandvoort, which, to be fair, when it comes to circuits and profile and how they are with undulations and risk versus reward, Zandvoort's not a million miles away from a circuit like Brands Hatch. Obviously, they're not the same, and I'm not saying that, but when you consider like the risk versus reward, the fact that they are fast corners that will instantly kill you, it's the same track. Zandvoort, Brands Hatch, same track.
And on that bombshell,
I mean, it's basically it's the Nordschleife, you know.
Yeah, no, come on. Nordschleife is, no, but I get what you're saying in terms of the characteristics of the track. They are very, very similar indeed. It's very momentum based in terms of the track as well. If you, one of the points you made, Lewis, that I was wanting to pick up on those last race that I didn't, was that you said that, you know, it's a track that if you make a mistake, it costs you badly, and the reason for that is that it costs you for the rest of that track. You need to keep your speed up so much here. For instance, you make a mistake here and you're slightly wide on the entrance to the run up the hill there. That then costs you around Graham Hill Bend, then costs you through the rest of the track, and what is maybe a 2/3 of a second mistake becomes 2 to 3 seconds of a mistake by the time you're done.
I mean, there's no easy tracks on this calendar. I said before about the calendar, the ones we've got. There's no Paul Ricard on here, you know. There's no million miles of runoff. We go to Zandvoort next round. We go to Barcelona after that. You know, fair enough. That might be the one where it's kind of like, that's the easiest circuit on the calendar? Question mark. It's not an easy one either. Then we go to Bathurst. Greatest racetrack on the planet, fight me, it's better than Nordschleife. And then afterwards, to end the season, we go to Imola, which is an incredibly difficult circuit in its own right. And so in that sense, we do not have an easy calendar. Girardis, though, not having an easy time of it here at Brands Hatch. Drive-through penalty coming in from our race steward. That one going to against the 919. Was where the issue arose on that one. That'll be the S&P Racing esports car that they came into contact with. So Girardis receiving a drive-through for those issues.
Yeah, it's not been the best 8 races for them in the number 31, but again, I'd be fascinated to find out how this all impacts on the driver penalty points and the team penalty points at the end of this at this race. I think there's going to be a lot of teams scratching their heads thinking, what have we just done to our season in the first race? It's I think there's going to be a lot to answer for after this first race, Lewis, because again, you just cannot afford to be taking on so many penalty points at such an early stage of the season.
This is it. I mean, you say, like, you know, early stage of the season, because obviously this is, even for some, realistically, even in the early stages of the year, as Eamon Murphy tries to get back around Nick Hoban, but no way to do so, and Van Dreuten's run wide just ahead of all this. But for a lot of these, this might even be like the start of their proper year of racing, you know. It's good for us to take a couple of months out as well to start the year, as you would do in real life. And let's be honest, 2021 was exhausting for those that were racing anywhere in sim racing. But on ACC, when you consider taking part in a lot of the SRE sports stuff, whether it's the sprint, the endurance, or both, which quite a lot of drivers did, all the stuff in the SimGrid, when we had our sprint series, we had our endurance series, we had the SimGrid VCO World Cup, and then a whole load of other championships here, there and everywhere, which is fantastic to have that option. You always want to race in all of them, especially when there's prize money, like there is $2,000 in total up for grabs just from the top split, and then various prize money going out to split 2 and split 3. And you want to be fighting for that prize money all the time. It's exhausting. It drains you mentally. And that's why sometimes you need to take a break. So this might be some of them starting off their year properly and then going, oh, well, we're receiving loads of penalties straight from the off. That is a horrible way to start your year of really getting into it and racing.
It's a bit of a sign that your year's going to be absolutely cursed. But you're on about the prize money and the pools for these competitions. What I always find fascinating, and again, maybe this is just the Scotsman in me, is the fact that these drivers at the end of the season, if they get money, it's almost like they forget about it. They're almost like, oh yeah, that's cool. Almost like they really weren't interested in it. And it's a fantastic position that we're in with sim racing, that there's these wonderful, wonderful prize pools on offer. But it almost feels like the drivers are genuinely doing this for the championship and for the honours.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see what Abelad's can do. Speaking of fighting for honours and potentially even fighting for championships as well. Got to get past Killian Ryan Meenan here. He's putting on a fantastic effort to back up the superb opening stint that James Parker did. Just tried to hang on to a very well-deserved third position, but it'd be very well-deserved for them, very well-deserved for Abelad, very well-deserved for Robbie Stapleford, who's closing back in. Is on the right-hand side of your screen. We ride on board with Abelad in the SimWare.pro. On the left-hand side, we are focused on the battle between Hoban, between Murphy, between Stetsenko. We've got 1 minute left to go in this race, meaning realistically, based on where we are on the racetrack, this is the penultimate lap of the evening's racing, and what an evening it has been to open the season here in the Coach Dave Super Sprint.
It's been an absolute firecracker as we see Eamon Murphy trying to go around the outside again. We've seen this is a bit of deja vu here. Again gets forced out to the grass, and he's never going to learn, is he? Because that's going to be another position lost this time. Mikhail Statsenko says thank you very much, takes 9th place back. And Eamon Murphy, at this point in time, when you're getting pushed down, you have to make those moves. You have to just try it and see what can happen with it. It might have worked. He might have been able to stick it around the outside, but you ask anyone, and 9 out of 10 people are going to say, "Yep, never going to work."
Well, we're on the final lap of the race now. Dyer McCormack has Valentin Barriere right on the rear end. Now, if Valentin Barriere, you're looking at that lap time, you're thinking, "I've got the race win. If I just sit here, I've got the race win." But you're kind of like, "I want the race win on track, though." You kind of fancy it. Wonder if he's going to do anything. I doubt it. If I were in his boots, I wouldn't. That race win is coming your way if you don't make a mistake. Just sit there. Killian Ryan Meenan not really afforded the same opportunity as he sat right there in third position. Abelad's right on the rear end. Robbie Stapleford far enough off that it's not too much of a worry as we refocus on our race leaders, as Dyer McCormack holding on to the race lead. It's been superb. Just a shame for that 5-second time penalty to be going the way of the number 80 for an earlier issue. Tinko van der Velde did a great opener to the stint. The pit lane sequence went brilliantly, and it does seem as though Dyer McCormack is going to drag us across the line in first place, but it does look like it is going to go backwards one spot, as it did in race number 1. It went back to a Bentley. That one was SimWare.pro. This time it's going to go backwards to a Bentley, and this time it is the Jardier community car in that number 44 that's victorious here at Brands Hatch. Dyer McCormack, though, and Tinko van der Velde, they are going to grab second position after the 5-second time penalty is applied. And finally, as they cross the line, Killian Ryan Meenan can breathe. By only 1/10 of a second, he beats Abelad out for the podium. That is a superb fight, as Eamon Murphy was fighting to try and grab more than 10th over the line, but it is 10th place as they cross it. What a dramatic start to proceedings in this season. Brilliant round number 1 ticked off, and 2 very worthy winners.
I've got to say, I'm very impressed with BMW Team G2 Esports there, finishing 5th position after that absolute nightmare that they had halfway through the race there. I thought they were going to be lucky to finish in the top 10. Thankfully, fate smiled on them today, and I think they'll be very, very happy there to take that 5th position. Meanwhile, Alexander Novikov, one of the drivers you thought was going to be so strong today, it's just went from bad to worse, and fighting at the moment for 27th place.
Got to give credit to Mikhail Bykov. It was a brilliant opening stint to have gone from 10th basically up to fighting for the race lead. Sadly, though, the mistake was his own, and the issues arose and was sent down the escape road and over the gravel trap at Paddock Hill, when it cost them basically everything in the second race day, but they still left it with a victory in the first. Victory, though, in the second, going the way of the Jardier community car. Again, really, really brilliant. I did wonder about this with Votcher, the switch of drivers that we got, because it was supposed to be Machkovsky behind the wheel of that car. It did kind of surprise me just a little bit. A great race, though, David.
Absolutely fantastic. I mean, look, we always get into these seasons, Lewis, and we're really excited and we're playing it up and we're like, oh, what's going to happen? Genuinely, even up into the last 5 minutes, neither of us could have said what on earth was going to happen. So much unfolded over the past 2.5 hours there. And I get the feeling that this is going to be cut and paste for every single race. It's just going to be so unpredictable.
Well, I think it's about time that we grab ourselves a bit of an interview with our race winners. Superb stuff from the Jardier community car. Valentin Barriere, we'll start with you. Mate,
yes.
What a race too. Fantastic stuff. A race victory. Had to play it a little bit cool at the end of the race.
Yes, I was not expecting to finish this race in P1, actually. But actually, Max had a not very good pit stop, which lost us the lead. So came out of the pits behind the two Mercedes, and then they had a bit of a contact. So put me back to P2, and then I was basically chasing McCormack the entire stint, and I was actually driving pretty bad on my first 4 or 5 laps. So I was starting to lose a bit of time. So I was like, damn it, that's it. I'm not gonna get him. But then I realized he had a 5-second penalty, so the goal was just to stay pretty close to him within a safe distance, and that was it.
There was never a thought to potentially send one down the inside in the last couple of laps. No need to risk it like that.
When he started to do a couple of mistakes on the last 2-3 laps, I got really close. I mean, I got pretty close to him, and I was like, maybe I can try to win it on the track, but no.
I mean, always worth a bit of an effort. Now, just a final question. Talk us through about the idea of how the evening unfolds. Do you learn quite a lot in race 1 to go in race 2, especially with the top 10 reverse that sent you up towards the front?
I don't know. Like, race 1 was very eventful for us. We actually somehow managed to go from P17 to P9, which was really nice. And the goal in race 2 was to stay clean, just like it was for the end of race 1, and it worked out for us. We managed to stay alive, basically.
Again, great stuff from you, but the race had to be begun by someone, and over to Max, someone who wasn't on our entry list at the start of the day. Where did this pace come from? Like to kind of jump in and to take a victory? This seems crazy.
So basically, Valentine just called me in like 40 minutes before the session opened, so he sent me the setup immediately. I just hopped in on the practice server and I was just constantly lapping up until the qualify was over. And yeah, I still was a bit off, but I managed to keep it consistent and clean on the racetrack, and that brought up the result we had.
Now, coming into it with that little preparation, you're literally just thrown into the car, into the race. What were the expectations? Was it just to survive? Was it to aim for top 10s? Surely a win wasn't on the cards in that.
Yeah, also for me, it was just damage limitation to just lose as least places as possible to get the best outcome we could, and it worked out perfectly.
I think the important question that I think most of us want to know is, yes, super sub, obviously. Are we going to see more of you in this season? Because what a round.
Oh, I have no idea. I'm happy to jump in whenever they want,
Well, I'm going to let you go and celebrate. Fantastic stuff to the pair of you. Brilliant race wins to the Jardier community team. Go and enjoy it.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
And David, again, we love going racing here in SimGrid, and it's great to be back. Just going to say that I am loving being back in the commentary booth alongside you, David. Another great evening of racing.
Oh, we were absolutely spoiled again. It was just, we almost know what to expect with these guys in terms of high drama and action and just craziness. And that's exactly what we got tonight. 2 bonkers races. We've got many more to come in the season ahead, but we now turn our attention to races 3 and 4 in just a couple of weeks' time at Zandvoort.
Absolutely. We will be returning to a circuit which is, of course, exactly the same as this. I don't think that's actually the case even remotely. As we head to Zandvoort in 2 weeks' time, I will not be in the commentary booth. Unfortunately, you'll have to put up with DJ Clark, who's a lot of fun. So that'll be a good laugh. Of course, we couldn't wrap up the evening's action without giving a shout out to Coach Dave Academy. You can head over there to get all of your setup, coaching, everything that you could possibly need to get up to speed on Assetto Corsa Competizione, and of course iRacing as well, should you be interested. It's a brilliant place to start to get into it. That has been round number 1, our first 2 races completed here in the Coach Dave Super Sprint. We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. Until then though, bye-bye.